Good afternoon, race fans, and welcome to the first ever Champion Motorsports iRacing Team Endurance Series. And we are live for the first round at Daytona International Speedway. Hi, my name is Taylor Burris, and joining me in the booth today is Rachel Whitford and, of course, our producer, Ryan Bauer. We will be bringing you all 5 exciting rounds in this inaugural series at CMS. Rachel, we are here to kickstart this season off at the hallowed grounds of the World Center of Racing, Daytona International Speedway. A lot is at stake, but looking through the field, a lot of very competitive cars are joining us in this series.
Thank you, Taylor. Yes, there are indeed some fantastic cars, of course, and this is a great series. Looking forward to seeing exactly how this round goes. And don't forget, our series is sponsored by 4 terrific sim racing companies. We have Penguin RC, Complex Simworks, Gridfinder, and Visual Images. You'll be hearing more about their products and services during the race. And of course, Championship Motorsports is pleased to have them as sponsors for this fantastic series. Honestly, today, Taylor, I'm nervous. I'm excited. It's the first round. It's got so much to give this time. We've got 5 rounds this season for the championship, and wow, we got to be here, of course, be lucky enough to be here for the test race. It's competitive. It is really close. This is going to be a big one. Strategy is going to be everything.
It certainly is. This race is, of course, going to be 150 minutes long, so this is a team endurance race, so drivers have at least a minimum of 2 drivers or the maximum of 3 if need be as we get started here today. And looking through the field right now as the cars are out on qualifying, we have 2 different classes here in today's race. We have the Prototype class, which is using one of the iRacing's newest products here on the service, the Dallara P217, and then, of course, the GTE class, which is a wide variety of cars such as the Corvette C8, the BMW M8, the Ferrari 488, and of course the Porsche 911. All of those will be competing in the GTE class. And Rachel, looking through the field right now, a lot of very competitive cars with you, especially in the GTE class. Of course, we had a special practice race the week before discussing things ahead, and who you're going to be looking out for after watching this practice as well as the race.
Well, of course, we've seen some fantastic runs from drivers. Of course, Renault Alpine Racing looking really promising. We saw a lot from those guys. Always want to keep an eye on. Unified Performance Racing as well. Definitely want to keep an eye on. But it's hard to just express those 2 teams as my standouts. But there's so many cars in this field that could really have an edge. And with this being a full-length race, it's going to be really hard to tell what's going to happen here because this is 2.5 hours. A lot can happen. We've got multiple strategy windows here, and it will make a big difference. That 2.5 hours, 150 minutes, of course, it's going to change things. Everyone's setting is different. Everyone's setup is varied. Whether they'll choose to double stint tires, whether they'll choose to run their fuel a little bit longer to change the window, it's all going to play into this. And you may not look fast at the start, but the team who gets the strategy right will win this race, not the fastest car.
It certainly is, and in fact, speaking of that, CMS has come up with a special strategy to help out with the start of every race. In fact, we call it the orange zone. It's the start of any race, and the first lap is most likely timed for an incident to occur. And to minimize this possibility, there will be a designated orange zone inside which drivers are expected to be more cautious to avoid high consequence incidents and the potential for ending someone's race. The OZ will change from track to track. And looking as we can pull that up right now here for the orange zone, it's actually going to be in the infield section of the course. So entering turn number 1, you're going to then enter through the International Horseshoe, as well as the Kink, the Western Horseshoe, and then up into turn number 6. That's going to be the area where drivers are going to have to be most careful and take their time on as they continue on here.
Yeah, absolutely, of course. It's basically this is most likely where we're going to see most of the trouble on that first lap. It's endemic in racing. Everyone gets excited, the cars are close together. This will encourage everyone to give a little bit more space, be a little bit more tolerant for that first time through whilst everyone's bunched up, and allow people to spread out. So, really good idea by the organisers. Should help keep the start of the race a little bit cleaner. Practice was really clean, so I'm not expecting that it's going to be crazy, but of course, just another little, should we say, incentive to stay clean.
It certainly is. As we take a look at qualifying right now, currently in the LMP2 class, Revo Satellite Racing, driven by Paul Darling, is currently your pole sitter in that class. He will be co-driving with David Williams in that number 68 Dallara P217. Meanwhile, over in the GTE class, it is going to be the number 26 of PG13 Racing. That car currently driven right now by Alex LaRose, and then his co-driver this season in that number 26 will be none other than Cameron Bidwell. Both those drivers dominating performances last week in the practice race that we had. Of course, PG13 Racing coming home second, while we saw Paul Darling take home the checkered flag in his car in the LMP2 class last week for our practice race to get things ready. So a great opportunity for drivers to get things set up, but it's also good to see the variety in the GTE class. Looking at the field right now, it's going to be a Ferrari, a Corvette, and then I believe in the 35 car, that is also another Corvette. But we still have a couple of Porsches in the mix, as well as a couple of Ferraris inside that top 10.
Yeah, we certainly are. It's definitely going to be an interesting factor here. A lot of the cars have a lot of similarity in this regard, so that will be something we'll have to look at. They do have differences, and that's largely why the teams chose to go with those particular manufacturers. So we'll see how it plays out, but there's a lot of balance here, so it's not going to be down to one manufacturer really having a heads up in this, as much as it is to be the drivers.
Well, as we kick things off, let's take a look at the Daytona track facts here. Of course, this track is located in beautiful, sunny Daytona Beach, Florida. Of course, this track is a 3.56-mile course, 11 turns here, and it's going to provide a lot of different opportunities. This track will go into the infield here at Daytona International Speedway before they get to the more famous high banks, what we see in the NASCAR Cup Series. But here, when you come to Daytona and sports cars, we just know that we're ever so closer to the most famous race here at Daytona when it comes to sports car racing, the Rolex 24, which will be kicking off in about 2 weeks' time. And of course, the iRacing virtual one will be kicking off this coming weekend here. So a lot of drivers are looking forward to kicking off this race to help get them in preparations for the two major sporting events that are going to be happening both on iRacing and in the real world. Qualifying is closing in on this. Rachel, anything you would also like to touch that these drivers are thinking, anything that they want to consider before making this green flag start here in a moment's time?
It's about getting your mindset right. It's about getting out of your own head. It's about making sure you're ready to do this thing, making sure you're ready to go racing for a long period of time. And it's all about just keeping that clear head. Endurance racing is so different from any of the sprint disciplines, of course. You've got to have such a cool, chilled mindset where you just don't sweat the small stuff. You get a mechanical. You fix it, you keep going. Because you never know what's going to happen to anybody else. You get worked up, you get flustered, you lose the race. Endurance is about the long haul.
It certainly is the case here. You can definitely not win it on the first lap, but you can throw away all the marbles on that first opening lap if you are not careful. A couple of drivers are still out on track right now. One driver who I'm looking at seeing is Joshua Freon in the Puggers in a Blanket LMP2 in that number 30. He put on a good performance so far during practice, currently sitting in the 7th position right now, as he currently has his best time of a 134.256. Looking at the timing and scoring in LMP2 is a big gap of difference, just showing the capabilities of the cars. Fastest time right now is from the Revo Satellite team with a 132, while the slowest car right now on track in class is car 153, the Penguin RC Complex Simworks Racing team of a 135.491. So you're looking closely at almost a 3-second gap in the LMP2 class, while in GTE, times might be a little bit closer. As far as inside the top 10, of course, 139.75 by United Performance Racing is the fastest time in class. But looking through the field right now, top 5 probably separated by less than a second at least.
Yeah, certainly are, and that's always going to be a major factor. The 1 second gap, it matters more in your sprint races. It doesn't matter as much in this. Qualifying, yeah, it sets your order, but it's not going to necessarily affect the whole race because over the time period, you can get past them. Some guys, they may be more focused on a long run car. They may not have built a car that will qualify quite as fast as somebody else, but that car may last twice as long as its tires. You can never really know.
Certainly is the case right now as we continue to come to a close with qualifying cars still completing their final laps. They have been given 3 laps to complete their times here at qualifying, or 15 minutes. So drivers are trying to see who's the best driver to qualify. Of course, the driver who qualifies the car will be starting the race here today. And as we brought out earlier on, when to come down pit road to make that driver swap will be critical as we continue to press on through today's race of 150 minutes right now. Currently, no changes in your pole positions for both your classes. It is still going to be Revo Satellite Racing number 68 leading in LMP2, while it is Unified Performance Racing with a 139.751 leading in the GTE class. As we keep an eye on a couple of other cars who are still out on qualifying, you're actually on board right now with John Taylor Tammy from Rebellion Racing in that number 25. He's in 16th overall. He's about 2 seconds off the pace as we're on board with him. Actually, let's take a quick little lap here. They're going through the International Horseshoe as they come out of there down through this little short chute before they get to the kink. Driver's going to try to go all flat out, but you have to let the throttle breathe, especially if you're battling with somebody or trying to get through lap traffic while you're working your way through the Western Horseshoe.
Big thing we need to really touch on here for endurance racing, that lap traffic isn't just in the way. Lap traffic is a useful tool. Being good at working around traffic will mean you have a better race, means you go faster, means you navigate that traffic quicker, means you can get a better position. You can use it as a pick to pass somebody, you can use it to hold your opposition off. Working with the traffic in endurance racing is the biggest component in multi-class racing. It is everything. You master it, you master endurance multiclass.
Of course, another thing, the opportunity for a great opportunity to make a pick is here through the bus stop chicane. If you're able to set your car up to where it's able to make a pass on the outside or inside of a competitor, which may hold up somebody who you're racing against, it can be a big opportunity, but also a very dangerous one if you're going side by side into the bus stop. I mean, Rachel, we've seen time and time again throughout all motorsports events that I've held here, running through the bus stop can be very dangerous if you're going side by side.
Even solo, it can be a little dangerous if you just clip a little bit too much grass. That car will spin out and you're in a world of hurt. So it's definitely important to make sure you get that one right every single lap.
It certainly is. As we're still on board, he's still going to try and complete his lap. Turn one, probably also one of the danger zones that we'll have to keep an eye on for a lot of action, especially for these P2 cars. These cars will be approaching speeds of 200 plus miles an hour as they're working their way into turn one. The GTE cars probably close to 185 miles an hour. So it's going to be pretty brave for them to try to see how far they can go before having to get onto the brake pedal in order to make turn one. So we're going to have to see what happens, especially on the opening laps, which of course is the orange zone for those first lap, but still going to be critical as the race goes on here today. As he's coming up to one of the famous corners right there, the transition, as you're trying to get ready to go up the banking, cars can get a little bit loose through that section of the course, which can be critical in order to get as much power down for your race car.
Yeah, absolutely is, and it's all about making sure you get that power right, because proper application sets you up for the whole run. And with so many big long straights here from the Daytona banking of the NASCAR circuit, it's everything. So getting out of those corners fast, especially leaving leaving turn 6 into NASCAR 1, hugely critical. Actually, the bus stop, hugely critical. Those set you up to get the best laps you can.
He certainly is. As we're keeping an eye on that, Rebellion Racing currently sits still in the 16th position with a 134.901. Can he improve upon his lap time? We're about to find out as he comes across the start-finish line. This should be his final lap, as he does not improve his lap time. Actually, he does a little bit, actually. Looking at time, Rebellion Racing moves up to 12th place with a 134.541. And with that, that should be all the cars who have completed their qualifying runs here today. So let's go ahead and give you the full field rundown per class that we have here today as we get ready for round number 1 of the CMS iRacing Team Endurance Series. Your pole sitter for today is going to be car number 68. That is going to be the Revo Satellite Racing Team. Of course, Paul Darling and David Williams is your pole sitter, and they will be the co-drivers for that car. In the CMS Pro Summit Team, car number 19, they will be starting second place. In third, you will find the Imperial Motorsports Shake Team, which is very familiar for those of you who are fans of the PCA. That's got Christopher Pies and Leif Peterson behind the wheel of that number 13 Dallara LMP2 car. In the fourth position, you will find SimHQ Motorsports 1, and then rounding out your top 5, DDM Racing in car 61. In the sixth position, you will find the Hard Promise Racing's number 17 Dallara, and then in seventh, TNT Racing Carbon, car number 82, a very fan favorite when it comes to sports car racing across the iRacing service. Very strong competitors in that car, as it is going to be Scott McIntyre and Scott Hensley piloting that LMP2. Parkers in a Blanket, number 30. They had a great run last week in the practice races. We're going to see what they can do here today, as Joshua Frione will be driving that car here in the opening laps. Pneumatic Motorsports Purple will be starting in 9th position in car number 14. Rounding out your top 10, Team Cosmos. Starting in 11th in LMP2 class is Team Cosmos, or it's going to be the Father and Sons Motorsports, a very nice little team right there, father and son competing in this class. Followed by Rebellion Racing. We just saw them in qualifying. They'll be starting 12th. Pneumatic Motorsports Blue will be starting in the 13th position, followed by Backroads Bandit Racing in 14th. The Craft Dinner Racing, starting in 15th position, and riding shotgun in the LMP2 class. Inferno Racing Dragon in 16th, and the Penguin RC Complex Simworks Racing rounds out your 17-car LMP2 class. Rachel, what about the GTE class?
On pole for GTE, of course, Unified Performance Racing there with their Ferrari, with PG13 Racing on the inside in the Corvette. Behind them in 3rd place, SimHQ Motorsports 3 Corvette, with the SimHQ Motorsports 2 Corvette behind them in 4th place. Then we have the Can-Am Canucks over there in their Corvette machine as well. Bluffsforest Motorsports Green and their BMW are sitting in 6th place. The 7th being Renault Alpine Racing's Corvette. Bluffsforest Racing Motorsport Blue is in the 8th place, with Kamikaze 9th. Can-Am Racing in 10th. All Balls Racing back there in 11th place in their Corvette. Longhorn Racing Lone Star in 12th with their Ferrari. Auto X Sim Motorsports is BMW in 13th. Longhorn Racing 14th with Team Breakfade. BMW in 15th. NGP Motorsports 16th place, BMW there. Popular car in the field. Triple R Motorsports Ferrari is just behind them, with Can-Am Express and MMTR bringing up the rear of your field in their BMW and Corvettes respectively. It's a very big field, and they're starting to move off now, so let's get it going.
We certainly are. It's the pace car, the iRacing's Porsche pace car, will lead them out through the bus stop chicane up onto the high banks of NASCAR Turn 3 and 4. Another thing to consider here that we're going to be seeing a lot of, Rachel, is going to be drafting is going to be a big play for both classes, for both P2 and the GTEs. But LMP2 can snip the draft of a GTE car to make sure they can slingshot past their competitors before they get to a passing zone, or a GTE can, in fact, use an LMP2 to an advantage to get past its competitors in its GTE class.
Certainly can. It's always one of those factors that will definitely make things a little bit more spicy for them, of course, but field's getting ready to set up here for the go. You're entering the start area for the prototypes. Here we go.
Here we go. The pace car will make the hard left turn down into pit road, and we will turn them loose. Paul Darling, along with the rest of the field, will get ready for 150 minutes of racing. Waiting for the green flag to come out. Green flag is out, and we are underway for round number 1 of the CMS iRacing Team Endurance Series here at Daytona. Down into turn 1 for the orange zone for the first time here today is going to be Paul Darling with a head of steam right now, leading over Christopher Pies as Darling goes wide. Pies will now take over the race lead in the number 13 Imperial Motorsports. Rest of the field is trying to go single file to make sure they make it through. No penalties will be given out if they are able to keep it clean and green right now. How about over the GTE class there, Rachel?
Was early on, Unified Performance Racing took an early lead, cutting off the nose of PG13 Racing, coming through the International Horseshoe now towards the kink. Right behind your prototype field, they've closed up really, really quickly with how timid the prototypes actually were going through now, turns 1, 2, and 3 there. In fact, they're right on the back of the rear prototypes here, as the roaring GT fleet comes flying up here behind them. And it's a very clean run so far for your GT field. Nothing happening yet, but everyone's keeping their nose. Oh, we got a big donk coming into turn 6. It's a prototype right there in the back end of your group. We'll try and get a replay for what happened. And I unfortunately think it was the Craft Dinner Machine who got sideways off the corner, got sideways in the braking zone, actually spun around. And it was a single car incident. No penalties, I don't believe, for a single car spin. He stayed static, stayed up. Oh, contacted a GT car. That is unfortunate.
Yeah, several GT cars David Hasser, driving that number 43 Kraft Dinner, collects several other cars such as Make Blue in the Can-Am Express, Burke O'Desmer in the Bosphorus Motorsports Blue, and a couple of other GTE cars involved in that incident. But right now, up towards the front of the field right now, it is going to be Christopher Pies leading over as he's going to go side by side actually with Paul Darling into turn one. Darling on the outside, Christopher Pies to the inside as Christopher Keimeler in the CMS Pro Summit team is watching on in third as they now come out of turn number one, heading into the International Horseshoe. Paul Darling will regain the race lead after that lap one mistake, coming out of there through the straightaway, heading towards the kink. Darling doing a great job holding strong now as he regains the race lead. Meanwhile, back in the top three, it is still a three-car breakaway for over the rest of the LMP2 class.
It really is, and I have to just say for a moment, the Kraft Dinner Racing guys, I feel terrible for Dave Hasser there. He had an awful situation. He basically spun out right on the apex because of the braking anticipation. He maybe thought the guy was braking ahead of him too soon. He locked up, he spun out. He held that thing so static for so long, he saw a gap, he tried to pull the car to the inside to get off the apex, because he was sitting right on the racing line. So he was desperate to get out of the way of the entire GTE field, and he tried to pull to the inside when he saw a gap. Unfortunately, a GT car tried to go inside him, which I'm not sure was the brightest choice there, but it happened regardless, as we have a car just running a little bit wide there in your GTE field. I think that was All Balls Racing who went balls deep, unfortunately, into the runoff area. And yeah, that's lost them a couple of spots there. They dropped down a couple of places. I can't place that on Kraft Dinner Racing, I'm afraid, as much as mac and cheese disgusts me, and that will bring up some terrible, terrible opinions. That wasn't their fault, really.
No, it wasn't. It was just a small mistake right there. A racing incident, especially on the opening laps. Cold tires, also a big factor as well. And back to the driver who went wide as he was getting passed by Dave Hasser. That was Paul Hamilton in the All Balls Racing number 57 Corvette. Meanwhile, back up in LMP2 class, battle still raging on between Paul Darling, Christopher Pies, and Christopher Keimeler, who are now going still three wide, or three cars in that battle right there. No other drivers really getting involved. Douglas Hint in the DDM Racing, as well as Scott McIntyre, are a little bit separated from the top three right now. About 2 seconds for Scott McIntyre and about a second and a half for Douglas Hint as he goes wide through the Western Horseshoe, loses a ton of time, and in fact, actually is going to draw in Scott McIntyre in the TNT Racing Carbon a little bit closer as they come through turn number 6. Chris Clymer was actually having a little bit of difficulty out of turn 6, loses a ton of time over Christopher Pies as they come up through NASCAR 1 and 2.
Yeah, certainly doing, of course, Justin Heston, United Performance Racing at the front of your field right now. Unified Performance Racing, sorry, I do pronounce that one occasionally. Really having a pretty uncontested race so far after that start and securing their place. They and PG13 Racing have had a pretty solid run so far in this one. Both really not challenging, just running good lap times, good speeds. We've seen some spots gained by Can-Am Canucks. They and Drew DeLuca have really been pushing forward. They've gained about 6 spots so far, so they're definitely one to keep an eye on. They're closing in on your leaders.
They certainly are. Less than a second and closing right now as they're making their way up through the field as they continue to go through the bus stop chicane. Another driver who has issues right now is going to be Christopher Pies. He gets passed by the CMS Pro Summit team of Keimeler, who just moved into second place. But with those two battling, that will now allow Paul Darling to gain about a second advantage over the rest of the field right now as they go into the International Horseshoe once again, as they have completed 3 laps here currently as they're working on lap number 4 through the straightaway before they get to the kink. It is going to be a great drive for Paul Darling after that lap 1 incident as he now goes to the Western Horseshoe. Meanwhile, looking through the field as they're already going through some lap traffic. Currently right now, Scott McIntyre, Douglas Heinz having a little bit of issues with the BMW right now as they all try to sweep around him before they get to turn 6.
Yeah, they're trying to pull that one, and he's getting through there just about, kind of pushing his way through the GT field at the moment. It's, I guess, a way to get through there. It's early days, so it's a little bit of kind of elbows out racing right at this stage of the race because all the cars are so close together. You've kind of got to muscle your way through there. You have not really got time to hang around. So later on in the race, it'll be single cars, it'll be passing in great places. But now with this first kind of passing round through the field, it's always going to be the elbows out. It's like, I got to come through. Come on, I'm the quicker car here. Don't hold me up. Got people to race, places to be, stops to get to, and they don't really want to hang around.
No, they certainly don't. And in fact, a lot of the LMP2 drivers usually try to let the GT drivers know that they will find a way around them. Don't really try to get in the way, because usually when you think you're trying to get out of the way, sometimes you're actually in the way of these LMP2 cars as they're trying to get around you a certain way when you're thinking they're going to go another way. As we watch the battle for second place between the two Chris's as they dive it into turn one. Christopher Pies able to get around Christopher Keimeller, who has now moved up to second. But with those two battling, they still are losing ground and time on Paul Darling in the race lead right now. It's now almost a 2-second gap between Christopher Pies and Paul Darling as they continue out of the International Horseshoe down the straight right now. And looking through the field, it looks like Justin Hess still holding strong as he's pretty much passed one of the LMP2 cars who just now passed him, of James Stacey in the Pneumatic Motorsports Blue, who had some trouble early.
Yeah, Pneumatic have just gotten back past them again, of course, but kind of expect with the speeds coming down to the Western Horseshoe for them the second time round. And it's definitely been interesting so far. We've seen a bit of closing up here between themselves and PG-13 for Unified Performance Racing. Can-Am Canucks have dropped back a little bit, so that early burst we saw from them has kind of tapered off a little bit here. A little bit slower right now for Drew. Those guys just managing their race car. They've made some spots. Now it's time to consolidate and keep hold of what you've got rather than burn the tires up early. Now to come in.
Certainly is the case as we have a battle right now for the fourth position between three cars. DDM Racing of Douglas Hintz, TNT Racing Carbon of Scott McIntyre, and the Parkers in a Blanket LMP2 of Joshua Frion. Those three have been battling quite strongly as they come out of NASCAR turn 3 and 4. Can Scott McIntyre get a good run? He's got the run. He's got the draft. He's going to take a peek to the outside, try and complete the pass before they get to turn number 1. As he will, he'll slot down in front of Douglas Hintz to take over the position as he will move back inside the top 4. So a great battle for position for the fourth place between three cars. So as we continue to look through the field in LMP2, another good battle is the battle for seventh place between Drake Burgone and John Taylor Tammy, who we just saw on our qualifying. Throw in Robert Tarbox Jr. as well. So a three-car battle for seventh as they came out of the International Horseshoe. Burgone holding strong in that Team Cosmos LMP2.
Certainly are, of course. Look at the 24 of Bosphorus Motorsports Blue right now. They had a little bit of an incident earlier on with that spinning.
Ooh, trouble in the Western Horseshoe. It looks like Rebellion Racing got in a little too deep right now. And that's going to also cause some issues for Robert Tarbox Jr. as he goes through the grass off corner exit of the Western Horseshoe. So a big loss of time as we take a look at the replay. As we take a look, he tries to take a pass to the outside, then slips to the inside, and then just loses control of his race car, loops around. Tarbox almost makes it through, but gets a little bit too loose, has to go through the grass in order to not make contact with anybody else.
Yeah, two solo spins there, both kind of sympathetic to each other. The cars have stepped out a little bit too slow. In fact, the aero really wasn't giving them enough grunt to keep the cars on the track there. They're a little bit slow. Those cars will start to get really, really loose on them, especially with how they get them set up. You rely on the aero, so you've got to come through those corners fast, of course. And I was just mentioning earlier, of course, looking at Bosphorus Blue, they're currently chasing Can-Am Express. In fact, I think they just passed them whilst we were looking at that spin. So Bosphorus moving forwards, looking towards Longhorn in front of them.
That's currently driven by Burke O'Desmer, who is in that Porsche right now. A great job, effort from the Porsche drivers who are in here right now as they continue on their way through inside the top 10. Still nothing to miss up front right now. It's still going to be Paul Darling in the Revo Satellite Racing having a 2.7 second lead over the CMS Pro Summit team of Christopher Keimeller, as Christopher Pies in the number 13 Imperial Motorsports Shake team is currently still battling with him. So we have a two-car battle for second and then a three-car battle for that fourth position right now. But Paul Darling just slicing and dicing his way through lap traffic as the leaders are working their way through. And pretty much right now, when you're on the banking, on the oval track here at Daytona International Speedway for the road course, that's really the best time to catch lap traffic because you can easily work your way to the outside or the inside before you get to any major braking zones. And I'm pretty sure Paul Darling is pretty much at ease right now, not really pushing the car, and it's a good opportunity to save tires, save fuel. As he cuts the course just a little bit, he might receive a time penalty if he's not careful, which is one of the things that iRacers on here need to worry about. If they cut the chicane a little bit too much, they will receive a small time penalty in order to continue racing.
Yeah, and that could really hurt them on those long straights. SimHQ Motorsports 2 and 3 are running in order right now, back in the 5th and 6th place here. Sorry, 4th and 5th place, I should say, trying to count down the second class, so it's a little bit harder than the front group. 4th and 5th place for those two cars. They're right behind Can-Am Canucks, who are up there in 3rd. So maybe we're going to see a little bit of team effort here from the SimHQ cars. Maybe they'll get together here. Nolan Kinslow in the 2 car, and the number 3 car is Paul Hale. Of course, they are 34 and 56 respectively on their actual plate numbers. But the two, should we say, house vehicles from SimHQ, both running together. So I'm expecting some draft partnership going to happen here. Maybe they'll race together for the majority of this race. They'll help each other out, and then towards the end they'll battle each other for position. But for now, I'd be scared if I was a Canadian in front of those two.
That certainly is the case right now. In fact, their sister car in the prototype class, SimHQ Motorsports 1, of the car number 12 of James Andrew right now is battling in 9th position, trying to get around Nick Kuhn in number 17 Hard Promise Racing LMP2 as they come out of turn number 6 up onto the banking of NASCAR turn 1 and 2. Nick Kuhn actually is a familiar driver for me, actually competes a lot in the short track world, but knows a thing or two about getting around Daytona here in the road course. In fact, last year competed in the GTE class in a Porsche with a couple of Lapsevich brothers and actually won in class. So a great run for him right now in a P2 as he probably getting a little bit extra practice to get ready for the big show this coming weekend.
PG-13, big fan favorites from what we're seeing in the chat actually right now. They are chasing down Unified Performance Racing at the moment. Alex LaRose behind the wheel of the PG-13 machine at the moment, and that Corvette is absolutely moving. They're definitely closed that gap down. It's slowly decreasing to the leader. It's under a second at the moment, which is exactly where they need it to really gain some draft benefit. Any closer, they're going to get more. They could have a pass, but right now they're in that window, and that is important.
It certainly is, as they are closing in about a second right now on that United Performance Racing Ferrari of Justin Hess right now. Looking at their lap times, they're very close to lap times last time around, just shy of a 1/10 of a second between the two drivers as they are coming out of the bus stop chicane, heading up through NASCAR turns 3 and 4. Ferrari versus Corvette. Even though we don't have any fours in here, this is the best American versus Italian battle we'll have all season long here. And these are probably going to be the two drivers to watch in the GTE class, Rachel.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's going to be definitely people to keep your eye on. They've been standouts from what we've seen so far, and I wouldn't expect any different in this race.
Certainly is not the case. Nothing to miss so far up in the front of the field right now. Paul Darling's just slicing his way through some lap traffic as he works his way up through the field out of the bus stop. A little bit of hairy situation as he gets around one of the GTE Ferraris of Leonard Burke in the Triple R Racing number 71, but still able to continue on his way out of NASCAR turn 3 and 4 with about a 1.2 seconds lead over the CMS Pro Summit team of Christopher Keimeller, who is now coming past that lap car of the 71 Ferrari as they come across the start-finish line.
Yeah, the prototype's absolutely flying past there into the first corner here of the infield. A GTE car behind them, just trying to stay out of the way, not trying to get too close to this business as the leaders in your GTE class heading out of turn 6 onto NASCAR 1 right now. So the prototype's starting to catch up to the front of that field. They're infield behind at the moment, essentially. But now seems like a really good time to bring up one of the sponsors for the series, and that is Penguin RC. Penguin RC makes high-quality, affordable simulation products for all sim racers, and their main products include wheels and button boxes. Crafted to excellence with care, their line of products is constantly being expanded as the sim racing community expands, especially during these times. The most popular unit being their PS Mod 1 wheelbox, which is universal for almost all controllers. Penguin RC won't produce anything at a price that they wouldn't personally pay. See for yourself how beautifully manufactured their work is at their website, which is penguinrc.com. That is penguinrc.com. And I've seen some of their stuff. It is fantastic, Taylor. You should really check them out.
I definitely am actually looking to upgrade and make some upgrades, so I might have to consider going over to Penguin RC to see what I can do to upgrade a button box. And speaking of Penguin RC, they actually are out on the racetrack right now with the Penguin RC Complex SimWorks Racing. Car 153, driven by Christian Ost in the in 14th position right now. He's about 3.8 seconds back from the 13th position of George Dean and the Inferno Racing Dragons. So out there still on the lead lap, putting on a good performance as he works his way through some GTE lap traffic.
Yeah, it really is, and there's quite a bit of that right now as they are filtering through the faster cars, so it's going to be a little harder for them to pass these guys. It's not impossible. If that's going to happen, it's just going to be a little bit more difficult. These guys will be the ones that are slightly more on the line, a little bit closer to each other. We've got some racing. Actually, look at your leaders in the LMP2 class. They're right behind battling GTE cars in the infield here, so this is an awkward spot for them to catch up here. as I believe this is going to be the team brake fade car. Who has to go to the outside in the Western Horseshoe for a couple of the prototype cars, which is a huge advantage to Can-Am Express, who scoots off into the sunset, hoping they can make it through turn 6 before the prototypes catch them, and they're going to have the right to that line. But this is an easier place for the prototypes to pass them. They're up on the banking. It's exactly where they can do it. Just go to the outside, scoot past, no one loses any time. But this really hurt brake fade because they had to get past in a corner, whereas Can-Am Express gets the express ride on the straight.
It certainly is the case, and that's one of these things that prototype drivers and GTE drivers are going to have to show to each other in class as we still watch this battle for the race lead, is showing patience to each other. They have to give the right of way for these corner exits and lines in order to where they don't make any contact, or worse, spinning each other out in any situation that may happen, especially when they get through turn number 6. That's going to be a critical area where drivers may think they can make a pass, but might have to consider being a little patient and giving a little bit of give and take in order to make it through that corner and up onto the banking. As we still watch the battle for the race lead, the lights are on here, so we are closing in on full darkness. Sun's still out just a little bit as it's still cresting just behind all of the grandstands here at Daytona International Speedway, but we're still going to go into the night here as they continue into the International Horseshoe, and a big little bit of a loud jam right there as two GTE cars, a Porsche and a Ferrari, are going to hold up Paul Darling just a little bit, which might allow Christopher Chimera and Chris Pies to make ground.
It's definitely closing him in there. Burst Longhorn just ahead of the leader there in the reverse satellite racing machine. He gets around them in the Western Horseshoe on the outside. They've got the power to do it. They can just get past there, but there's rapid pick's been useful there to the Revo machine. And Paul Darling, who got through in exactly the right place, the two cars behind him, actually suffered there coming through turn 6. They didn't get quite the right entry line they wanted, which cost them.
It certainly did. A little bit of time lost right now, so it was about 3/10. They now dropped back another 2/10 for Christopher Chimera, who is just dropping back, but utilizing the draft will gain ground on Paul Darling as they go down the Daytona Superstretch before they get to the bus stop chicane, hitting the braking zone just a little bit past that little light post as they come through the bus stop chicane right now. And let's see if Christopher Chimera can gain some ground. He's still at about 0.4 of a second, but still nothing gained. Now drops back to 0.6, so he might have cut the course just a hair. So you have to keep an eye on making sure he didn't lose too much time on that penalty as Christopher Pies is gaining ground on Chris Chimera.
Yeah, certainly is doing what he can here for this one. Unified being caught by PG-13. Alex LaRose closing that gap down even further at the moment. He's right behind your race leader, Unified Performance Racing. So this has been a really, really close battle. These guys are going to be differentiated on strategy, I think, in the GTE class. And this has been a lot closer than I thought it would be. PG-13 keeping Unified Performance Racing really, really honest here. And of course, the track's going to be a little bit cooler as we go into night. That will be a big factor for them as well, which will change how the tires wear on these cars. But right now, when they pit, it's going to be a massive factor in this because PG-13 could go longer, I don't know. Or they could be burning everything here to stay with Unified Performance Racing. We will find out as the cycle filters through.
That certainly is going to be a question to see when these drivers will pit and see how far they will push their cars to the absolute limit and how towards the end of the run those tires as well as the fuel conservation will affect their cars here late in the going of a fuel run. Meanwhile, still back up the front of the lead, Chris Chimera has caught ground on Paul Darling as they work their way out of NASCAR 2 down the Daytona Superstretch. He's got a good toe from Paul Darling. He'll look to the inside, side by side before the bus stop. Paul Darling gives way. Will Chimera make the corner? He will, but is he going to make it out of there perfect enough to where he'll keep Paul Darling behind? The answer is going to be close. Out of the bus stop through NASCAR 3 and 4. Darling slots in behind Christopher as they come through NASCAR turns 3 and 4 out of turn number 4. They're going to see if they're going to keep it straight and narrow or will Paul Darling jump to the outside. A little bit of lap traffic in front of them as well. This time it looks like to be a couple of prototypes. So they're now catching the tail end of the prototype field, which can be a big effect on these lap cars.
The last car, who's about 6-7 places back from the prototype field, they'll likely be jumping out of the way here, but what they're actually looking at in front of the craft machine is the SimHQ Motorsports 3 and 2 cars who are in 4th and 5th in the GTE field. So they're nearing the front of your GTE cars right now. And of course, they have to get past the mac and cheese to get this one going. And that'll be a much harder prospect for them, not into the real meat of the prototype pack yet. That is still quite a way ahead for them. Maybe about 15-20 seconds. So right now, just one car to get past, but even then, it's going to be trickier because this car corners like they do. It's as fast as they are. Not necessarily right now, because of course it lost time and it has some damage, but it is still going to be a challenge as they get onto the back here in turn 6. And leaders really have something to work for as they go around the outside.
David Hasser in the Craft Dinner Racing gives way as he'll slot in behind the Corvette of the Sim HQ Motorsports number 2 of Nolan Kinslow. As here comes Paul Darling. He'll try to slide out to the outside. Will he be able to get past David Hasser as they go into the bus stop? The answer is going to be tight as he goes to the outside. Now cuts to the inside to hit his marks through the bus stop chicane and is able to hold his position. And loses only a little bit of time, maybe a tenth, but is able to utilize some of the slipstream from the Corvette of, looks like, Paul Hale in the Sim HQ Motorsports 3 to get around him as they're now working up to the Can-Am's Canucks of Drew Ledecky.
Yeah, certainly are doing what they can in this one, and Can-Am Canucks really working hard. And Drew there really putting his work in this one, holding in 3rd place. The gap has opened, of course, to the guys in 2nd place as they're all trying to dodge out of the way of the prototypes here, not wanting to get in the way of too much. This has brought up, of course, the Sim HQ 3 machine a little bit closer to the Canucks, but that's also taken away his teammate advantage of having his sister car with Nolan Kinslow right behind them. So that might actually be an advantage there. Of course, now there's the Craft Dinner machine cheesing up the works of this one. I'm not going to avoid puns. I will not apologize.
Oh, we got to have some cheesy puns in tonight's broadcast to have a little fun here tonight as they are approaching. Yes, yes, indeed. You are on a roll here tonight, Rachel, as we're continuing on our way, approaching 2 hours left to go in tonight's race as they work their way off of turn number 6 to get back onto the banking right now. Ty Mailer, who is currently now caught up to, it looks like going to be the Unified, nope, that's actually not one of, that's the Kamikaze BMW right now, who they just got past. So they still got a little bit of ways to go before they catch up to the top 2 of the GTEs, which is actually right in front of them as they come off the bus stop chicane of going to be Alex LaRose and Justin Hess, who are still in a tight battle for their position in class.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to go for as much as they can with this one, but we are coming towards the end of that first cycle here, and this is going to be really indicative of what we're going to see throughout the rest of this race. These guys are going to be really showing their hand here to the others, and that'll be a big factor. But looking towards the middle of your prototype field, actually, we've got a really busy run right here with SimHQ, Hard Promises Racing, Pneumatic, and Black Road Bandit, all in a group here, running through 3.
Trouble in turn 1. Ooh, big contact. Alex LaRose and Chris Kymailer. Kymailer actually loses it going into turn 1. Alex LaRose has nowhere to go and makes hard contact to the CMS Pro Summit Team LMP2. As we get a look at the replay right now, Christopher Kymailer goes a little bit wide. The car does not able to grip and just slides right back in front of oncoming traffic. Almost collects Paul Darling in the mix, but for Alex LaRose, there's a lot of nose damage. In fact, he lost the hood of his C8 Corvette.
I think I see what he tried to do there. And it's so tragic for those guys because he saw the car coming across the track, and it looks like he darts to the side to hit it, when in reality what he's doing is he's darting to the right, thinking that car's coming straight back across the track. You'll see here on the replay, it looks like he's darting across there to just dodge it. And as it comes in, he's just tried to go round the right-hand side. He's expecting it to keep going rather than lock the brakes and sit in the middle of the track. And, oh, that team has to be crushed. PG-13 have got a huge fan support, and they are going to be calling for blood here from the prototype field, because that took a really, really tight race for the lead of this GT class, and has opened it wide out here.
Certainly has, as Christopher Kymailer in the CMS Pro Summit will get back around the PG-13 racing of Alex LaRose. So I'm pretty sure those two are going to might be having a discussion once they come out of pit road and do their driver swap later on here tonight, see what the situation was. But as they continue on their way, Paul Darling now recontrols the race lead as we have a new driver inside the top 3. That is going to be the number 82 TNT Racing Carbon of Scott McIntyre, who just now joins the podium position. Christopher Pye still holds on to second place. And right now, Alex LaRose still has about a 2.5-second lead over Drew Ledecky in the Can-Am's Canucks Corvette. So he still has a little bit of room, but with that damage, it's only going to be a matter of time before Ledecky catches up.
It is. CMS Pro Summit are in pit road with Carmela right now, getting repairs into that car. They've had to be towed back there. It's not what they wanted to have happen for them at all. Same for the PG-13 guys. Heartbroken from them. Are they going to run to the end of the stint? Is the car still good enough for that? Are they going to get caught up here? Because the Canucks are not far away right now. They're right behind them, and it is not over. This is endurance racing. A lot can happen. So get that car fixed, get back out there. You know, do you wait for your cycle? I think maybe. But at the same time, there's a lot left to happen.
Well, that's one of the amazing things when it comes to iRacing service and, of course, the endurance aspect of it. You know, the sim here allows the computer system to where they can make those needed repairs to where that car can actually maybe not be fully competitive like it was on the opening laps, but at least be somewhat able to continue racing out on the racetrack without making a serious problem per se for the driver. It might be a little difficult at first if they keep going out there with severe damage, but once they come down pit road, they're able to have a little bit of a timer to let them know how much damage needs to be repaired on their race cars to where it's a little bit more competitive than what it is currently.
Yeah, it certainly is, and it's always going to be a very, very, very exciting one with this one. The pit cycle will be a big telling factor in this, and it will always be something that will completely change how this race unfolds. But this sort of thing happens in motor racing, especially endurance racing. You gotta just factor it in and go, it sucks, but we're keeping going, because someone else could get taken out completely, and everything could change entirely. We are 30 minutes into a 150-minute race. We have 2 hours left to go. That is a lot of racing left to happen, guys and girls. That is a huge amount of time. Anything can happen. I've seen people be a lap down, win a race in a 24-hour. I've seen all sorts of weird and wonderful things happen. And speaking of weird and wonderful things, we're going to have a little contest over the duration of this broadcast, Taylor, because...
Oh, do tell.
I found out from a little birdie that CMS founder David Anderson and Champion Motorsports founder Doug Atkinson have a little side bet going on the series. And it's going to be over the results of the overall series, so 5 rounds here. I wonder what they're betting, because they're both in Texas, one in Dallas, one in Houston, so it's going to make things interesting. We have a pit on 37 as well, I'm just hearing, but I'm thinking whatever's going to be happening here, whatever bet may result in somebody on a mechanical bull. I mean, the Texas thing, that's what's giving me impressions here. Mechanical bull, whilst drunk, in their underwear. Okay, I'm taking this too far, but
I think
there's a mechanical bull involved somewhere. There has to be. There has to be a mechanical bull. You two are both Texans. This has to happen. They told me they're from Texas, so unfortunately, that's going to have to factor in now.
All right, well, we're going to need... We have spoken. There has to be video evidence of whoever wins this bet then, once that comes into fruition.
Oh, no, the loser has to
tough little... that is going to be the case. So the loser has to ride the bull if whatever they decide as far as their bet. I believe it's probably going to be whoever the teams finishes the best in the standings come the end of this series. So we'll have to see as we see Walter McNulty in the number 37 Father and Sons of Motorsports LMP2 had a little bit of trouble coming out of turn 6, was able to regain control but drops all the way back to 15th, about 1 second back though from the Inferno Racing Dragons of George Dean right now, who's in 14th in that number 29. They're both working their way around some lap traffic. In fact, speaking of Texas, I believe they're working their way around the Lone Star Racing Ferrari.
Yeah, they certainly are trying to go for the Lone Star Ferrari right now, and it's definitely been an interesting race for them. Them and their sister car, of course, the Longhorn Machine, a couple of spots back. In fact, is 2 spots back behind Alpine. Having a good run here. They're a little bit behind from the SimHQ cars, but it's our second kind of 2-car team that's running in the group here, so should make things interesting. And that's Brett Stevens behind the wheel of the Longhorn Racing Lone Star Machine. And I swear, every time I look at those cars, and hopefully we can show this on the cameras right now because this is important to me. People understand my suffering with this one. Every time I look at the Longhorn cars, maybe it's the name Longhorn, but when I look at that at a glance, I see Realtree camo. I see like Bass Pro Shops, kind of hunting gear, Realtree camo. Like, I can't help myself. I know it's more Art Deco than anything else, and it's beautiful. In fact, the delivery those guys have on their cars, they look phenomenal. But when I first glance at it, I see Longhorn, then I just imagine it's got like Longhorn horns stuck on the hood of the car. It's wrapped in Realtree, and it's probably got some sort of, gun manufacturer sponsor on the side of it. I can't help myself. That's all I see.
Well, of course, if you think about it, when it comes to... Ooh, it's car number 25 having some troubles actually on track. That's the Rebellion Racing. We went on board them during qualifying of John Taylor Tammy, who's now still in the 5th position, able to regain control of their race car, but now lost about 1 second on the Team Cosmo LMP2 of Drake Bergone, who is now pulling away in the 4th position, trying to see if he can catch up to Scott McIntyre in the TNT Racing Carbon right now as they go down the Daytona Superstretch. Looks to the inside of one of the GTE cars and then heads through the bus stop chicane. John Taylor Tammy right now trying to keep a better line through here and make sure he doesn't go off, and continues on his way and makes up about 2/10 on the Team Cosmo LMP2.
Yeah, they certainly are there. We had a bit of a run wide moment from one of the LMP machines. I think it might have been, I'm trying to find out who exactly that was in your field right now, but it could have been one towards the rear of the pack. I think it was father and son had a little bit of a run wide in turn 1 earlier, but they're currently running down towards the bus stop now as there's a lot of traffic ahead of them from the GTE field, and PG-13 Racing still holding relatively well here, even with the damage. They're still fairly ahead of Sim HQ Motorsports, so that is going good for them. Can-Am Mechanics, of course, up in 2nd place now in GTE, but they are a mile back from the leaders Unified Performance Racing and Justin Hess, who are currently ahead of some of your LMP cars who are coming through, getting out of the way for them. He's got bags of time to let them through, and it is going really good for them. They are basically on their own strategy now to pull this one through unless something mechanical happens, so this is where you back that down. I've often used this comparison from mountain biking because it's something I'm involved in as a sport, but it has 2 similar disciplines. It has downhill racing, where you just go down the hill once, you have 1 run, that's it, time, boom, done. You give 110%. It's a lot like Formula 1, it's a lot like sprint GT racing, and then you have enduro, which is more like rallying. You go stages, like 4 or 5 stages in a race. That's where you give 80-90% in each run, because you have 5 of them, and you then have to pedal to the top of the next hill to go down the next one. So unlike the sprint type racing, you know, your Formula 1 type events or sprint GT events, endurance racing is about keeping something in a tank. And for Unified Performance Racing, they have a unique opportunity here without that contest right behind them, right on the back of them. They have the ability here to just back it down a notch. Focus on tire and fuel saving. Make this car efficient because they have time. And that time is huge. It's nearly 10 seconds to Can-Am Canucks. That's about as close as you want those Canadians to get to you. But you can afford to shave off some of that time and race to the car behind you, which is the real strategy in endurance racing on the track, is race to the car behind you, not to the one in front. And they can do that.
They certainly can, and that's going to be a great opportunity for Justin Hess and that Unified Performance Racing Ferrari right now as they continue on their way, holding that 10-second lead over Drew Ledecky. Another thing to keep in mind, even though it's maybe not as close, but still, Revo Satellite Racing Paul Darling has about a 4-second lead over the Imperial Motorsports Shake of Christopher Pies, and continuing to grow ever so slightly each and every single lap that they complete right now. So maybe not able to give up too much time, but able to conserve a little bit here and there. Same thing with Chris Pies. He has about a 12-second. Ooh, we have a car on.
Father and
actually.
son in the International Horseshoe there. They just wobbled off the track. I think it wasn't father and son, actually. I do apologize. It was another car very similar in color. I could have sworn it was them.
Could have been
why I did.
Could have been the Poggers in a blanket.
Could have been pockets of a blanket, but it was another one of those kind of purplish looking prototype machines had gone off with the green wheels. So yeah, they had a bit of a moment there. Everyone's back and running again. There was a single car off the track, but it definitely made people pucker a little bit, I think.
It probably did. Currently behind the wheel of that number 30 is Joshua Frione in the Poggers in a Blanket LMP2. He's currently running now in 16th after that incident, so a tough break for him. He's having to work his way up to the back bumper of actually our GTE class leader of Justin Hess to get around him and continue on his way here at Daytona International Speedway. Currently right now, a couple of cars in the LMP2 class have come down pit road, some for fuel damage. And in fact, a couple of them right now one of them is the TNT Racing Carbon of Scott McIntyre has come down pit road. So one of our first top 5 competitors has come down pit road and seeing what will happen along with the Rebellion Racing, who's actually doing a driver change. Andrew Cheslock currently sitting in the car right now. He's going to take over and continue on here in a few moments.
Yeah, certainly do. And the race is definitely getting a little bit more busy right now. Some of the back-running prototype cars are amongst the GTE cars, and they're not necessarily much faster. So we're definitely seeing the fast GTE cars really starting to mix here. So we're seeing a real blending of the fields, and some trying to get back past, some trying to be passed, and it's making things a little congested on the infield.
It certainly is a little bit of congestion here, but right now what we're going to do, and this is probably one of the, for those of you who are a fan of the Rolex 24, especially when it's the late evening hours, when it's everything, when you sit back and relax and enjoy the sights and sounds here at Daytona, that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break, but while we are away, enjoy the sights and sounds of Daytona International Speedway. Welcome back to the CMS iRacing Team Endurance Series, live for round number 1 at Daytona International Speedway. Green flag pit stops are underway as our race leader and overall leader in the LMP2 class, Paul Darling, the Revo Satellite Racing, has come down pit road to get his tires and fuel and possible driver change. We're having to wait and see what will happen as he's currently out on his pit road, as Christopher Pies also should be joining him as well, along as Christopher Keimerler in third is still out on the racetrack, but he's already come down pit road earlier on. So we're waiting to see if there's going to be a driver change in our top 2. So far, no, they're going to stay in their LMP2 cars. Anything different over there in the GTE class there, Rachel?
Not seeing much right now, of course. Leaders currently probably looking at a pit stop. I don't know. The window's a little bit longer for the GTE cars, so don't expect them down yet. Prototypes, of course, will be pitting first. Probably the next 10 minutes or so for those GTE machines to come down. And that's where we'll see the strategy really start to open up here. But as your leaders pit back out again from Revo Satellite, as does Imperial Shape. They went down pit road too. They reacted to the leaders. CMS Pro Summit, I don't believe, did pit.
They have.
Well, no, they have pitted before, but now they're coming around again. So they're recovering from, of course, that little incident they had earlier.
They certainly have, as Christopher Pies has to avoid a couple of GTE cars who go a little bit wide out of the International Horseshoe as they work their way back around the Unified Performance Racing Ferrari of Justin Hess and continue on their way right now. But of course, no driver change in those 2 cars. Paul Darling's still going to stay in the Revo Satellite Racing LMP2, as Christopher Pies will also stay in his Imperial Motorsports Shake LMP2 right now, as they currently start to pull away from the rest of the field. Of course, Christopher Pies has probably about a 9-second gap between him and Paul Darling, as he's about 3.9 seconds back from Christopher Keimerler in second place. As we continue to look throughout the field, a couple of more battles are on the track right now in the LMP2. The battle for 8th place between Team Cosmo and Drake Burgone and SimHQ Motorsports of James Andrews. So I know Doug is going to be watching quite closely this battle to see if he can get an extra point or 2 to help win his bet.
We'll hopefully see if that bet can come through, because the idea of him riding a mechanical bull now fills me with glee, and I definitely want to see that. Although I'm sure we'll find new inventive ways to make it much more exciting as the race, and in fact the season goes on. We will think of ways of making this bet more embarrassing and more challenging than ever, so their drivers really have to work hard to win this for them, because they will not want to lose this one by the end of it. I guarantee you. We will think of new creative ways to make this bet much, much more exciting for you, the viewers. But at the moment, Unified Performance Racing still out there lapping on track. Everything going as expected for them. At the moment, Canucks are behind them. they are not closing in yet. The race leaders, of course, Revo still having a great time out here. Paul Darling doing some good laps. I mean, we're looking at what? It was about 40 minutes we saw when they came in for pit stops, so we've got 2 more stops, realistically. Maybe
I would at least say
3.
2 more stops.
I would minutes would be 80, and you've got, there'll be 2, there'll be another one. Unless they're doing a particularly long stint here, we're looking at 3 or 2 incredible fuel save runs. So that's going to be tough. I mean, it would make sense to have the sprint run at the start to really make those gaps to allow you to have the time to save fuel, so this would be logical. Do you stretch 2, or do you definitely go to 3? I think it's going to be 3 though for all cars.
It certainly is. We're going to have to keep a track of this. Of course, you know, with this endurance race of 150 minutes, we kind of see this similarity to what we see on an IMSA sports car race. You know, usually there's maybe an extra 15 minutes, but still, the closeness of the similarities between the two is very close indeed, as we see Paul Darling still continuing to work his way around lap traffic as he goes to the inside of a GTE, as he has both an LMP2 and a GTE car to get around as they come out of the International Horseshoe. Still has about a 6.8 second lead over the CMS Pro Summit team of Chris Kymailer. As we look through the field right now, let's take a look on a battle for 6th position. This is between the Rebellion Racing of Andrew Cheslock, who just got into the car after switching with Tammy, and now also Hard Promise Racing of Nick Kuhn in that number 17, about a half a second back as they come around. Actually, Alex Little Rose, who is now dropped to 5th position in class.
Yeah, he has, but of course that was all related to the incident they had earlier on with the damage, and they haven't come down pit road yet, so they're still trying to suffer through that one. They're holding what they can and waiting for that pit cycle, I think, to open up to stay on strategy, get what they can get repaired when they can, because they could lose a lot if they really do go off script too much here. I think they're just trying to sacrifice a little bit of speed for holding on to the general strategy of the race, for how everything else flows out for them, which tells you just how locked in they are to that plan for how this one works. So we'll have to see how this one performs forwards. But it is about time for our second sponsor plug, actually. I think we've got them up on the screen right now. So it's Complex SimWorks. And if you're looking for affordable sim racing accessories for your rig, check out Complex SimWorks. They offer 3D printing and custom design services for your sim racing setup at really affordable prices. And Complex SimWorks has many new products in development. Head over to their website at complex-simworks.com and see how you can upgrade your racing rig to be the best you ever possibly wanted it to be. Complex-simworks.com. And if you ever imagined having that little thing, Taylor, that just moved that, you know, your shifter to the side a little bit, or just leveled or raised the keyboard you want to have in that exact position there, wasn't quite right, they can sort you out. They are great people.
They certainly are. In fact, they're still out there on the track right now. Of course, Penguin RC and the Complex SimWorks Racing LMP2 is still out on the track right now, running 13th, driven by Christian Ost, who's doing a great job. He's currently about 5.7 back. He actually is going to try and see if he can catch up to the DDM Racing of Douglas Ritter for 12th position. He has a little bit of work to do, but I say given the time, we could see that Penguin RC and Complex SimWorks Racing inside the top 10 before all said and done. Has had a great drive right now as he's gained some time up on DDM Racing to get to 12th. So keep an eye on him, and as well as the rest of Penguin RC and Complex SimWorks Racing.
Yeah, absolutely. Unified right now heading out of 6th, and Justin Hess is doing some great laps still. Looking at him last time by, he's had some real consistency. He's been in the 39s. In fact, he's gone faster as the race has gone on. He was in the 140s initially for the first 4 laps. Then he went to a 141. A couple of laps didn't actually have time counting, but he has had some really quick laps. He's had a bunch of 139s right now, so he's running faster than he did at the start of this race, which is really showing that he's been balancing how much he's saving fuel here. That is huge. Actually, that's the practice times. I'm an idiot. I had that one backwards. He's been running consistent 140s basically for the entirety of this race. The initial lap, of course, a little bit slower because of traffic, but it does show you the same point stands. He is consistent. In fact, his last lap was actually 3 times faster than his previous, and faster than the first 7, 8, 9 laps. So that car is running faster than it started the race. They are saving tires, they are saving fuel. That thing is working well.
Certainly is, as we keep an eye on his progress throughout the rest of today's race. Right now, as we go back up towards the battle for sixth position, Nick Kuhn, Andrew Cheslock still doing battle once again as they dive it into turn number one. They were side by side briefly before Nick Kuhn decided to dive it into turn one a little bit deeper than Cheslock. Of course, Cheslock is the fresher driver right now compared to Nick Kuhn as they continue on their way. But with those two battling, that's going to allow the SimHQ Motorsports 1 of James Andrew to get into the mix. He's about a 1.6 seconds back from this battle, so if those two keep battling side by side, we could have a three-car battle for sixth position, give and take.
Yeah, we certainly could, and that could make things real interesting here as we have got a bunch of those guys all over each other for this one, and SimHQ catching up there, so that's going to be interesting. We'll have to see how they play this one through, but at the moment, it's right now hard promises and rebellion. We'll have to see if they can keep that hard promise to pass them. God, that was terrible, even for my standards.
We'll have to keep an eye and see if he's able to maybe make up that and try again differently as we continue on our way here. 1 hour, 43 minutes left to go on the clock as they continue. They have completed 29 laps around the Daytona International Speedway as darkness has finally beset us here at Daytona, the world center of racing. Lights are aglow on all of the race cars who are out on track. As we look to the field, 36 cars are out on the racetrack still, and 36 have started today's race. So no cars have decided to take it behind the wall to end their race here. So we'll have to see who is going to be able to continue on.
Yeah, we certainly will. It's going to be a tricky one as this one goes forwards, but it is really shaking out to be an exciting race here. We're on 50 minutes in so far, so 100 minutes remaining in this race. We're a third down. And it has been fantastic so far. I've been really excited to see what these guys are doing. We've had a terrific race, and everybody out there watching at home, the teams, of course, taking part in this one. Thank you, guys. You are awesome, and we are loving this race so far. Hopefully all the teams, any of the team guys who aren't driving currently who are watching, team managers, anybody at home, fans, family, friends, you guys are doing great. This is fantastic endurance racing, and it has definitely been, I want to say, a surprise because the practice race we got a chance to commentate was fantastic quality, but this has been a pleasant experience so far for us in the commentary team. We've had a great race with lots of action throughout. It's never really had a boring moment.
No, we certainly have not. We can't thank, of course, all the people who are a part of this organization to help be able to give what people like to enjoy. That's sports car racing at its finest here at Daytona. So, of course, thanks to CMS as well for the opportunity for these drivers to come out here and race on Sunday today as we keep an eye on the race to the field right now. Chris Pye's had a close moment, in fact, as they enter turn number one. Had to check up just a little bit for the Stephen Rivers car of the number 33 as he is trying to get his car locked up. Currently driving in 36th position in that MMTR Corvette with the Golf livery inspired. So great little touch to throw a little bit of retro as well as current future designs, because a little bit of a futuristic car, of course, with that C8. But, of course, the livery of Gulf, of course, well-known sponsor when it comes to sports car racing throughout history.
Yeah, absolutely are. And, of course, seeing those other cars is always fantastic, of course. But, big racing coming into turn one right now. Nearly three wide into one there. With SimHQ Motorsports watching this prototype battle here right behind the Can-Am Canucks. And it is a couple of the guys from back in the mid-pack of your proto field. That was hairy.
It's still getting a little bit hairy as they come out of the International Horseshoe, but let's take a look at the replay of that. That's Christian Oss in the Penguin RC Complex SimWorks Racing, as well as Douglas Ritter in the DDM. Let's take a look at this. Oss just dives it in there, but almost loses control as Ritter is just wondering where did he come from. Continues on his way through the little bit of a chicane right here before they head to the International Horseshoe. Ritter is able to get through, almost loses control of his race car as they enter into the International Horseshoe, making almost slight contact with Drew Ledecky in the Can-Am's Canucks Corvette, but is able to slip on through and continue as Oss will have to try to find a way to get around him. He is being very brave and daring, trying to get around Drew Ledecky.
Yeah, that was a hairy moment there of, somebody really wanted that place. So they wanted to get past the GTE cars because, oh man, that was almost some prototype bulldozer driving right there. that is one thing GTE drivers will be very familiar with, the old prototype bulldozers. That was more in the HPD days when those things literally would pick up a GTE car and flip them. They were like a ramp car.
It certainly is. We'll keep an eye on this battle right now. And these two have been going at it for quite some time. In fact, here comes Christian Ost with a head of steam right now on Douglas Ritter. He's going to look to the outside. Will he try it again? He doesn't have lap traffic in front of him this time. Will he complete the pass? The answer will be yes. As he continue on, they're coming up to another Can-Am racing car. That's Chris Hudson in front of them right now in the 121 BMW. Interesting situation for the Can-Am racing team. They have about 2 or 3 different manufacturers, BMW and a Corvette, 2 of the cars that they are running out on track, as Christian Ost will get around Douglas Ritter in the DDM Racing for the 11th position.
Yeah, they're doing everything they can here at the moment, and it's still a very tight battle here, right behind the 121 car there in the GTE field, Can-Am Racing. They get through pretty cleanly here into turn 6 as Can-Am swings across to get the racing line for himself, but this one is still pretty spicy. DDM desperately trying to chase down here the Penguin RC Complex Simworks machine just ahead of him as they go through NASCAR 1 and 2, and wow, they are definitely not holding it back at this point in time.
They certainly are not, as they go down the Daytona Superstretch heading towards the bus stop chicane. Late into the braking, Douglas Ritter will go to see if he can make up some ground through the bus stop, hitting the curbing just where he needs to, as he gets a good run off corner exit through NASCAR 3 and 4. Has a little bit of the draft right in front of him to help pull him up to the back bumper of the number 153 Penguin RC Complex Simworks Racing P2 car as they come out of NASCAR 4. They're about 8 seconds back before breaking into the top 10 right now, which is being held by the Backroad Bandit Racing LMP2 of Christopher Burnham, who's been having a quiet night for the most part here in the 10th position as he's trying to catch up to the Pneumatic Motorsports Blue of James Stacy.
And they're doing what they can here as it's still very much an active race here. These guys, we're still waiting on the rear window here for our GTE cars to come down pit road, as we have a slow car there a little bit further back. I don't know who that was. I think it was one of the lap down cars from the GT main field, but I think it might have been Can-Am Racing. Actually, there it was them, yes, on that section of the racetrack. But we're still waiting on that pit cycle. We're about 56 minutes in. I'm thinking they'll be pitting before the end of the hour, so that means GTE cars are looking at this stop coming and one more. So they're on a 2-stop, and I think it's overall 4 stops, possibly, or 3, if they are very conservative for the prototype. So that could be the 3. My math may be horrible. I think it's a 3-stop overall for them.
Well, just to let you know, a couple of the GTE cars have come down pit road. The Can-Am Canucks is now doing a swap with David Slee getting into his car, another car who just came down pit road. Probably one of the most interesting cars I've seen there, the Renault Alpine Racing Chevrolet Corvette with Hendrik de Zwart, who's now taking into the car right now, as well as looks like he's going to get passed by Alex LaRose in the PG13. But I saw another car also exit pit road. Looks like to be the Bosphorus Motorsports Green of Emery Sassi, who has come in and taken his swap.
Yeah, they're doing what they can. As here he is, race leader, Unified Performance Racing car with Justin Hess down pit road for the GTE field. Here we go. Into the pit box. It'll be tires and fuel for the car. It's had a clean race so far, so we're not expecting them to really need any kind of repairs on that vehicle. But I believe we'll be expecting SimHQ Motorsports also not pitting, so they're staying out here. SimHQ Motorsports stays on track, as does Can-Am Canucks right now. So first to blink is your race leader. Big gap for them though, so it's an advantage they can really sit with here. Nice clean stop. No real need to rush this thing. No need to gain time. We're in a fantastic position here as the car will be down off the jacks. Fueling is completing. And they're away. So good clean stop there for Unified Performance Racing. Hess stays in the seat. And they're back out for their second run.
Probably for some of these GTE cars, they may try to split it up to where the next pit stop we could see a possible driver change for some of them. But some of these cars have already done some driver swaps in the GTE class. The SimHQ Motorsports 2 Chevrolet Corvette just did a driver swap. Brian Van Buscemi will be coming into his car, as well as another couple of more of the Bosphorus Motorsports blue and green cars are actually coming down pit road to come get their services, as well as the Longhorn Racing.
Yeah, doing what they can here as Longhorn themselves trying to find an opportunity for this one. Busy pit road amongst the GTE cars right now as the rest of your kind of lead group looking to start pitting here, I think, in the very near future. So SimHQ 3 and 2 probably going to be coming down pit road here. They're putting an extra lap in. I think just for the numbers, but we're expecting them to hit pit road. Blosphorus Blue pitting out, Blosphorus Green sitting on pit road. Alpine Racing are out on track there. We'll see what SimHQ do. They're coming in. 3 is coming in. 2 stayed out.
As a matter of fact, here comes the SimHQ Motorsports 3 of Paul Hale to come down pit road, putting some of the other drivers who had come down pit road a lap down or possibly more as they work their way through the field right now and come down pit road. Will there be a driver change for Paul Hale? We'll find out momentarily.
Yeah, we certainly will, and it'll be exciting to see they can do this one. It's busy. It's real busy out here on the racetrack, especially on pit road. It's crazy. SimHQ3 there getting their fuel service. Alpine Racing start on track. PG13, they have been down pit road. They have had some repairs, but that car's looking faster now, so I think whatever they've gotten done has worked for them. They've managed to get their car back up performance here. We'll see how far they can climb up. Alex Laura is still behind the wheel. We'll see if they can really bring this one back and fight back on the strategy here, because that's really the window they've got.
Looking through the field right now, at least in the GTE class, at least 3 cars have not come down pit road yet right now. So that is going to be the AutoX Sim Motorsports with Michael Parker, the Team Break Fade of Brian Blanchett, and then the original Can-Am Racing 121 of Chris Hudson, which, as I speak, commentators curse, AutoX Sim Motorsports will come down pit road to get their service required.
Yeah, certainly is. And a bit of congestion in the International Horseshoe as the Renault Alpine Racing machine got a little bit sideways, but it's allowing PG13 and Alex Laros to catch up here, which is definitely giving them some opportunity in this one. SimHQ Motorsports right ahead there, so we could see them get back up to at least 3rd place at the moment with how the traffic's looking.
Certainly is going to be the case right now as we keep an eye on Hendricks de Wart as well as Brian Van Buscemi, as those two will battle for the final step of the podium right now as they are trying to catch up. Ooh, big trouble for one of the LMP2. That's the Rebellion Racing, who is one of the hard chargers. Andrew Cheslock just lost it and just overshot the corner into the tire barriers, and I think it's safe to say he's got that LMP2 stuck in the barriers. He just overshot the braking. Another actually LMP2 is stuck. That's Christian Oates in the Penguin RC Complex Sim Sport. He was able to get it back out to continue on, but another big costly mistake for that LMP2 cars.
I don't know why he did that. It was almost like a sympathetic crash. He came around the corner, decided not to actually corner unless someone dropped a banana peel from one of the cars in front in a Super Mario Kart sort of move. But unfortunately, the Penguin went newt right into the tire barrier. Sorry, it was a Pingu reference in case anyone remembers that.
We love the puns that you bring to us.
Sorry.
Hey, we're having a great time here tonight. We're approaching where we'll give you the full field rundown here momentarily as we continue on the way. But drama unfolds for some of the big movers here tonight. Of course, we just saw that happening for the Rebellion Racing, who is now going to have to take a tow, come down pit road and get that car fixed. Andrew Cheslock now on pit road in 16th position. Only 1 car is behind him right now. That's the 42 of Team Cosmos of David Santiago. So he had a little bit of a gap to not be the last car in class, but he's going to have a tough time as looks like a couple of more LMP2s that just decided to come down pit road. I believe that was the, which car was that? It was one of the LMP2s that just came down pit road. The Hard Promise Racing of Nick Kuhn.
Of course, as I will say, I'm surprised Pockets in a Blanket have been a little bit further back today. Joshua Friend is driving that machine, and they actually podiumed last time in the practice race, so a bit of a different result from them. Of course, they qualified better than they're running right now, and they commentators curse, they spin out in turn 2. I do apologize, Poggers.
How could you, Rachel? You started something. They were on a good run, and now they have this issue here, but they're able to get back going. No major damage to the Poggers and the Blanket. Joshua Frion, who's in that car still right now, is going to continue on his way. Looking at the car, no significant damage. He's going to keep on going, still at full pace as he comes around. Let's see what he's able to do as he gets back up onto the high banks here in a little bit. Back to our information of some of the teams. The SimQ Motorsports we've been talking about, they have at least 2 GTE cars and of course 1 LMP2 car out on the track here tonight at Daytona International Speedway. They have been one of the longest running sim racing teams. They've been around for 20 years. As Doug Atkinson, who is the owner of the team, has been a part of this, and it's amazing. 20 years. I mean, sim racing has been around for quite some time, but a sim racing team for 20 years, Rachel, that's phenomenal work and effort to help build what we see now today in the world of sim racing. So I'm pretty sure Doug has some interesting stories of how sim racing has progressed over the past 2 decades.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's been so much change, of course, and we're nearly coming up on nearly. This is a weird fact for you to kind of get your head around, but iRacing as an actual platform is based on one of that developer's early games, NASCAR 2003, NASCAR Racing 03, right? We're 2 years off not iRacing's base source code almost being 20 years old. That is crazy. What the hell? Like, I mean, if you compare iRacing now to what 03 was, it's nothing even similar. It's completely evolved beyond its original kind of conception, if you will, but that's where it originally came from in terms of concept, and that was what the original game was before it became iRacing, became a multiplayer-focused platform. In theory, technically, it took a lot of the code from it, but it wasn't necessarily an evolution per se. I'm speaking in developer parlance, but either way, that's crazy. NASCAR 03, nearly 20 years old. Like, where's time gone? What the heck? I feel old.
Time flies when you're having fun, apparently, and they are definitely showing that here today as we continue to see the progression and the future of the world of sim racing and esports continue to progress. I mean, what we saw last year in 2020, you know, with how sim racing and esports have become more of a staple to where people can enjoy the entertainment value of it, can only imagine what 2021 will bring. You know, I've talked to a couple of people in the iRacing service, and it's amazing to see what the future may hold. Can't give me a whole lot of details, but from what they're saying, this year probably will be one of the biggest years in iRacing and esports competition.
Oh, absolutely. If anything, esports has been primed for something like this current pandemic, which has been huge. You know, it's changed the world of competitive sports, and esports has been one of the few that's really been able to thrive in this. Now, it has changed a lot of the live events type of esports, where you've had big audiences, teams competing on stage together. It's changed that to more of a web format, but it's still continuing. The entirety of the Overwatch League this year was entirely web-based, and it worked. Obviously, one of the teams live together, so that works out just fine. And we're seeing some of the top sim racing houses doing exactly the same thing, but we're also seeing a lot of real-world drivers transitioning to things like iRacing to keep themselves current. I mean, look at AutoX Sim Motorsports. They're a group of real-life national championship autocrossers with the SCCA, and they've made a shift to iRacing during COVID. So this has been a platform where real racers can compete to keep themselves fresh, to enjoy competition while staying safe.
It certainly is. Of course, SCCA actually kicking off their season opener at Sebring International Raceway this weekend. In fact, for those of you who are going to be watching the entire season of the CMS iRacing Team Endurance Series, that's going to be our next stop, actually, at Sebring International Raceway on February 21st. So make sure you set your calendar dates, set your alarms for when we come back to give you more great coverage of the CMS iRacing Team Endurance Series. And that is going to be an exciting race to watch, as well as, you know, having to deal with the different bumps, and your car's going to get pretty much beaten up big time. In fact, if you have a motion rig, I kind of feel sorry for you.
It's one of those things I always wanted, to be honest. I've always fancied a motion rig. I've always, you know, I have, but at the same time, it takes up so much space.
It certainly is. And speaking of CMS, they actually do have a pro team out there, CMS Pro Summit Team, who is driven currently by Chris Kymailer, who's currently sitting in the 5th position. They are the pro team representing CMS at the league, which is a full group of race engineering efforts, and of course a young group of stable drivers who are continuing to grow their way up through the field of sim racing and motorsports. So it's like we talked about, a lot of drivers who compete using iRacing software could possibly one day, if given the opportunity, be a future sports car champion, sports car racer, or even, as we are here at Daytona, a future Rolex 24 winner.
Oh, gosh, yeah. I mean, I remember seeing some of the guys who are currently in Formula One when they were back running UK and I Club Skip Barber races. Like, people have gone from iRacing to the real world quite a few times. There's been a couple of guys go to NASCAR. There's been a couple of guys go to the sprint cars. It's a weird world that this is such a blur between the two fields, and it's kind of crazy. It is really, really exciting what we're seeing here. And as we're coming up on an hour and 8 minutes. What a heck of a race we've had today. It's been crazy. Really great activity from the drivers, some fantastic racing moments, and a really clean race, I will say. We've had some incidents, but they've mostly been single car accidents rather than collisions. Collisions have happened after an incident, but it's not really ever been a deliberate something that's happened, you know?
No, it really hasn't. And you know what? We can actually talk about a little bit of some of the situations that some of these drivers and cars are still out there featuring as we give you the chance to go through the field. Of course, we'll start off with the LMP2 class right now. And of course, currently up at the front of the field right now is the Revo Satellite Racing Paul Darling, who's trying to get around some of the lap traffic in the GTE class. He's pretty much had the race lead for the most part, had a couple of close battles on, but is able to continue on to hold on to the race lead in that Revo Satellite Racing. You got to go quite a ways back, actually still in the inside the infield, 22 seconds back to find the Imperial Motorsports shake of Christopher Pies. And for those of you who are fans of the PCA sim racing, he has probably a little bit of help from a crew chief. In fact, Christopher Pies is what we call the Birdman. He has a little bit of a small parakeet who he uses as a crew chief to be his name, of course, is Mr. Chip. He's continuing on his way, 21 seconds back in second. Meanwhile, back in third, a familiar team name when it comes to sports car racing on the iRacing service, TNT Racing Carbon. Scott McIntyre currently holding strong in the third position. He's been inside the top 5 pretty much since the drop of the green flag and continues to hold strong. Next up in fourth position, the Pneumatic Motorsports purple car of Robert Tarbox Jr. running strong about 12 seconds back from Scott McIntyre, but having a very consistent and quiet run right now, running inside the top 5. We just talked about the team, the CMS Pro Summit team. Christopher Keimeler currently sits in the top 5th position, holding strong after having some interesting situations happen to him early on in the going and recently, as he will continue on his way to continue to see if he can maybe get back on the podium. Sixth place, you'll find Backroads Bandit Racing of Christopher Burnham, as he is sitting 15 seconds back from Chris Keimeler. Christopher Burnham, of course, running strongly, having a very quiet run as well as he continues on. He was inside the top 10, but has worked his way just shy of a top 5 run. SimHQ Motorsports, I'm pretty sure Mr. Dud Atkinson, who is the owner of SimHQ Motorsports, is a happy man right now with one of his LMP2 cars inside the top 10. James Andrew currently is driving that number 12 LMP2, some 7 seconds back from the Backroads Bandit LMP2. We've seen this car out here in 8th position. The 61 DDM Racing Douglas Ritter having a strong run inside the top 10 in 8th position. He's been all over the place, outside the top 10, inside the top 10, battling with many other cars here as he continues a strong performance at the season opener at Daytona. Moving on back to 9th position, father and son motorsports. Walker McNulty is currently sitting in the car right now. It's a great duo to see father and son out here running here today as they continue on their battles. We'll see if they're able to work together to see if they can come home with a top 5 or a victory even. They're currently sitting in 9th. Of course, some of the title sponsors of the CMS iRacing Team Endurance Series, Penguin RC and Complex SimWorks, well, they're working together here for a race team with Christian Oss rounding out your top 10 right now in the 153 LMP2, trying to see if he can get around some lap traffic, and so far holding strong after a small incident a few moments ago. In 11th right now, actually coming down pit road, the Inferno Racing Dragon of George Dean has had a quiet night. He's been mostly inside the top 15 for the majority of the race, but now will come down pit road to get some needed refuel and services. Next up, we're going to find also is going to be the Pneumatic Motorsports in 12th position. That's Jason Lundy, who's currently on the track right now. He's quite a ways back, 40 seconds back actually from Christian Oss, as he'll continue on his way working through the field. Currently sitting in now, actually moving up to 12th is Joshua Frione right now, who's in the car in that 30th. He's been in the car for quite some time as he continues to work his way up through the field. Can he have anything to break inside the top 10? Next up, we talked about him early on in the going, had trouble on the opening laps. David Hazard in the Kraft Dinner Racing. One of the things I noticed, of course, he has one of the Sesame Street characters of Ernie on the hood of his car, so I noticed that as well. We were kind of joking about that during the opening ceremony, so we'll see what he can do. If he can continue to break into the top 10, he currently runs 13th. 15th position is going to be John Taylor Tammy in the Rebellion Racing. He got back into the car after the incident we saw earlier with Andrew Cheslock, who just hit the barriers in turn number 6. 16th in class. This is going to be the second to last car in the GTE class, or in the LMP2 class. David Santiago is currently sitting in there. He's having to negotiate through some GTE traffic to get back in the fight in the LMP2 class. Rounding out your field right now is going to be in the LMP2. Hard Promise Racing, Wayne Hutchinson has had some issues and is now back out on track, one lap actually behind the MMTR of Warren McGarry. So as he sits 36 overall, 17th in class. And Rachel, a lot of things are happening in the GTE class. Let's go through the field with them.
Absolutely are. Unified Performance Racing, your class leaders and pole sitters for the class today have had a strong race. They've led pretty much all the race today, and Justin Hess, still in that car, has had a fantastic time behind the wheel. They've been running to the numbers, and they're doing it exactly as they need to. Behind them, it's SimHQ3, currently piloted by Connor Denny. As one of the two cars entered in today's race in the GTE field, they've had a phenomenal run. Working with their teammates all race long, it has been a really powerful performance from the SimHQ team. Behind them, of course, it's the Toon car there, the number 34, piloted by Brian Van Buscom. And again, had a really strong performance today. It's been a fantastic run, and SimHQ definitely probably going to be feeling proud in GTE where they've had such a strong showing. Renault Alpine Racing there, and strangely enough, their Corvette, because as they told us last week in the practice race, it seemed funny to them as a group of Frenchmen in the race. Why not celebrate your national colours and national manufacturer? Currently, Hendrik de Zwart driving that car. Behind them, it's PG13 Racing, who have had a terrible crash with a LMP2 car. Managed to get that car fixed on pit road, and they're back out battling forwards again. It's been a tough run for them, but they are recovering well, catching Renault Alpine Racing. And Alex LaRose, a fan favourite, is doing all the driving so far. Behind them, in the 6th place, it's Blood Forest Motorsports Blue, piloted by Hassan Khan Ezgin. That car's been really working hard today. The BMW has had a great drive on the track. Actually has a Porsche, not a BMW. I was very confused for a moment. Although looking at Corvettes, it is Can-Am Canucks behind them, currently in 7th place. They've had a strong run today, and David Slee is doing a great job. They've been up and down the running order. Pit strategy wasn't quite as kind on them as they stayed out a little bit longer. Speaking of which, they're hitting pit road now for their second stop here. A little bit earlier than before. Behind them, it's Longhorns, one of the two teams from that stable. Longhorns Lone Star with Phil Elmore behind the wheel. They have changed driver, and they're into their second stint very well. Currently entering turn number 1 here with the mac and cheese machine in front of them. They've had a really strong showing. Can-Am Canucks is on pit road. We'll look to them. Auto X Motorsports currently running behind that grouping there, piloted by C. Michael Parker. They've had a strong day today. Really great performance from our team. They've stayed clean, which is more important than anything else in endurance racing, and had a strong showing. 12th place today is NGP Motorsports with Vinny Lima behind the wheel. BMW's had a great outing today, and they've been running up and down the field. They've gained 5 places overall, so it's definitely been an improvement over where they started. Can-Am Express with Brian Schlabensky, I apologize, Brian, for that pronunciation, is running up 6 places from where they started, and a very strong entry for today from those guys. That is Brian and Mick Blue there running in that car. All Balls Racing, just going off the track as we come to them, has had a bit of a tumultuous racing from running a little wide in various places, but they've overall had a strong outing today in the 13th spot there on the track for the GT field. Team Breakford have had none of that in today's race. Now BMW even apparently came with the optional extra blinkers fitted to it because they've had a very clean race and not got in the way of anybody, so unlike a normal BMW, they've been driving very well. Can-Am Racing, who've started better than they're currently running. They're currently down 5 spots from starting. Paul Seymour behind the wheel of that car has really wished it could have been better. Chris Hudson is the other driver for that vehicle, and they are still trying to regain spots from an early bad start. Behind them, Kamikaze, who have done nothing of the sort, running their BMW very strongly today. With some UK drivers in that machine as they're running this one through the order, and looking out for Japanese livery with UK sponsors. Quite a combination. Liam Rudziski behind the wheel, who I believe is Canadian. MMTR is just dodging a car there on the field. That was one of the prototypes that was sideways. I believe it was the TNT Silver car. Warren McGarry behind the wheel. Again, improved some spots, but not as many as they'd like, still struggling to find their speed in this race. Finally, in class 19th place, iRacing, Leonard Burke there. They've been trying their hardest to down one spot from the race today, and they've just been caught with traffic in absolutely all the wrong places. But as with endurance racing, they're persevering.
And with that, that gives you the full field rundown here for the CMS iRacing Team Endurance Series as we are continuing on their way. Pit stops are happening in the LMP2 class. We'll keep you updated and, of course, alerted when we know of our top three who are currently being held by Paul Darling, Christopher Pies, and Christopher Kai Mailer. We are going to take a quick commercial break, but don't worry, you won't miss any of today's action. Back with you here live for the CMS iRacing Team Endurance Series for round number 1 at Daytona International Speedway. Green flag pit stops are once again underway, but we have a battle for the race lead in the LMP2 class. They had a driver change for the Revo Satellite Racing. David Williams now getting behind the wheel of his LMP2 as he is now behind the CMS Pro Summit team of Christopher Kai Mailer, who still has yet to pit. Looking at timing and scoring right now, well, actually, he was one of the first to pit, so he actually utilizing the advantage of pitting a little bit earlier compared to David Williams. He has now regained control of the race lead right now as he continues on his way. Scott McIntyre is currently sitting in third position, some 46 seconds back, but he is going to be under pressure by another new driver who has joined the ranks as after switching in the Imperial Motorsports Shake team, Lee Peterson, who, familiar with me, usually competes in a GTE Porsche, but now he decided to take this next step up and decides to get behind the wheel of an LMP2 car. And Rachel, is there anything going on down in the GTEs? Any major battles we need to keep an eye on?
At the moment, things are pretty smooth right now. They've got Longhorn and trying to get past right now. I believe that is the machine from MMR. So they're trying to find their way through here in terms of a traffic factor. MMTR 5 laps down. And I believe that was the Longhorn Racing machine trying to get past them. Currently it's only 3, so they're 2 laps up from them as the TNT car gets past. Although at the moment things still very clean at the front, although lots of traffic around your race leaders here as SimHQ Motorsports in a bit of a prototype sandwich. And I believe we've seen Renault Alpine get past them, in fact, here. They are ahead.
Actually, that we just saw as we saw our race leader actually go by the Renault Alpine Racing Corvette, as we see Christopher Kai Mailer, who's trying to see if he can maintain that 2.5-second gap over David Williams in the Revo Satellite Racing prototype as they continue to go through the bus stop. Chris is currently now trying to see if he can get around the SimHQ Motorsports 3 of Connor Denny. who he's got a little bit of work to do. He's 33 seconds back from race leader in GTE class of Justin Hess, who has yet done a driver swap yet. So I'm pretty sure he's getting close to where he's going to need to do a driver swap to continue on his way here to possibly a win at Daytona.
Yeah, certainly is doing what he can in this one. It's very busy traffic here for the GTE field, as we've got a lot of the leaders from your prototype class getting past them here. Remember, Satellite Racing there, just getting past the SimHQ and Alpine cars, and TNT Carbon, Champion Motorsports getting through there as well. It's very busy traffic time on the racetrack for those guys. As we are 1 hour and 24 minutes in, just coming up on the hour remaining point here. So we've had an hour and a half, we're past halfway, we're into that final third soon, and it is when things will start to really hot up.
Things are definitely going to heat up here momentarily. Can we see David Williams find a way to catch up to Christopher Keimeller to get into the race lead once again? Of course, Chris, I'm pretty sure we'll have to do a driver change once it's all said and done, so we could be seeing a possible driver change on the next pit stop right now, as Scott McIntyre is also another driver who will have to do a driver change. Looking through the LMP2 field, I think it's safe to say everybody has done a driver swap at one point or another during the entire race here for the LMP2 classes. And of course, I think it's the same thing for you in GTE class. Everybody except maybe the Unified Performance Racing Ferrari of Justin Hess has yet done a driver change.
I think a lot of them have gone for it, but they have to do a fair share sort of deal, which means that they have to do their fair proportion of the racing laps for that car, which can come at the start or at the end of the race. It depends when they want to put the other driver in. Obviously, you want to keep your stronger drivers in longer, so you have to factor that in.
Certainly do. That's what we brought out in the pre-race talk, where we knew strategy was going to be a key. It's playing chess at over 200 miles an hour pretty much for some of these drivers as they continue on their way, determining the right point to pit, determining the right point to make a pass, to get around their competitors, as of course stay out of trouble. As we keep an eye on, of course, our race leader in the CMS Pro Summit team, Christopher Keimeller, in that number 19, just going now through the kink, heading to the Western Horseshoe. He's now gained a little bit of ground ahead of David Williams in the Revo Satellite Racing. 6.1, now 6.2 seconds ahead of David Williams right now, who continues on his way. Gets a little bit wide through the Western Horseshoe. He's going to lose a little time right there once again, now 6.4 seconds. But is able to regain control of his race car and continue on his way as they continue here at Daytona.
Yeah, they absolutely are, and P3 is currently a bit of a hefty battle for your GTE field. SimHQ Motorsports 2 and Renault Alpine, of course, just ahead of them in the middle of this sandwich of SimHQ Motorsports cars. Definitely made things quite interesting for them at the moment. The race there has been kind of going back and forth for the last few laps, and it's still one I think will be going further forwards. I wouldn't want to be the Renault guys between two of the teammates there from SimHQ. That would be a very unpleasant position to be stuck in when you've got two teams ganging up on you.
Certainly is the case. You don't want to have too many people ganging up on you to continue on their way here. You want to kind of want to be behind yourself a little bit when you're trying to set the pace and set a rhythm here at Daytona. You want to make sure you catch up to your competitors to get ahead of them. But also when you're by yourself, that's where you can start setting the pace, setting your race. Because yes, battling with competitors on the track is important. But when you're dealing with a track such as Daytona, even though on the map it may not look as technical, when you're dealing with these high power race cars and a lot of long straightaways and then hard braking zones, it's very important to set the pace, hit your marks lap after lap after lap. And that's what some of these drivers are able to do to continue on their way and able to run up towards the front of the field.
Yeah, certainly is, and that's going to be a huge factor for them in how they do things. You've got to basically make sure you're positioning yourself right for how things will come out towards the end of this race. The start doesn't matter, the end does.
Certainly is, and as we talk a little bit more with our race team right now, who's currently leading CMS Pro Racing, of course, that team has been doing a phenomenal job, and it has been involved with sim racing for quite some time. It was formed in 1999 with about 1,500 members, and it was formerly a racing league series where they race every single night of the week, with whether it be iRacing, R-Factor 2, Assetto Corsa, a wide variety of different platforms to use. But for instance, CMS will enter 2 cars next week in the 24 hours of Daytona with over 14 drivers participating. So a great opportunity to see what they can do. Yeah,
certainly is, and I love the history behind some of these sim racing teams right now. it shows just how much of a community sim racing is. So many teams have been around for so long, these organizations is huge, and it's so exciting to always see.
We also want to give a big shout out and hello and welcome to those of you who just tuned in to the iRacing.com live portal as they continue on their way. Of course, for those of you who just tuned in, you are watching live coverage of the CMS iRacing Team Endurance Series live from the World Center of Racing on the virtual Daytona International Speedway. As they are currently out on track is LMP2 and GTE cars. Of course, the GTE cars that you will see on track is the new Corvette C8, along with the Ferrari 488, the Porsche 911, and the BMW M8. All these cars are currently on track here for a 150-minute race here around Daytona International Speedway as they continue on their way. We started in late afternoon sunset and are going to end it under the lights here at Daytona. Currently, right now, for those of you just have tuned in, your top three in each class for David Williams right now is the Revo Satellite Racing has just taken over the race lead with TNT Racing Carbon of Scott McIntyre in second. Imperial Motorsports Shake of Leif Peterson rounds out your top three, while in GTE United Performance Racing Justin Hess in a Ferrari with SimHQ Motorsports 3 Connor Denny in a Corvette, and the Renault Alpine Racing Corvette of Hendrik de Zwarts, it rounds out your top three in GTE. So for all of those who just tuned in to the iRacing-live portal, we appreciate you for tuning in here for the CMS iRacing Team Endurance Series.
Yeah, it's an exciting race we've got so far today, of course. It has been just over an hour and a half now, and we've had crazy racing so far today. We've had incidents with our multi-car pileups, so we've also had incredible clean running for the majority of this race. And I think it's been really testing with the drivers and the teams with that mentality of finishing this race, because to finish first, you must first finish, and that is a huge factor for endurance racing. This kind of sounds like a trope, but it's so true. If you don't finish the race, if you just put everything in and burn your tires up or burn your car up, then you're never going to get anywhere in endurance racing, because it's about the long haul, not the short term. And keeping our eyes right now on SimHQ Motorsports 3, they're being caught by Renault Alpine Racing in their Corvette. Well, their Renault Corvette, I suppose we should call it, in this race, as it's going to be a Corvette battle here for that second place. Finally, a big battle coming out in GTE for one of those podium positions.
Certainly is. Let's keep an eye and watch this battle now as they enter into the Western Horseshoe right now. Hendrik de Zwarts is currently trying to get to the inside of Connor Denny as they come out of the Western Horseshoe, heading up to turn number 6 right now. Hendricks takes a peek to the inside, can't quite get to the inside yet as they come up to the transition corner of turn number 6. He has an opening but can't quite get the power down needed to see if he can catch up to Connor Denny. He's going to slot up behind Connor Denny to utilize the draft, use that slipstream to possibly slingshot around his competitor before they get to the bus stop chicane.
Yeah, certainly is, and it would be a great chance to do that as he's closing it now. We'll be able to pass into the bus stop, but it's a good setup for coming through NASCAR 3 and 4, especially if you can use that lap machine ahead for a pick. A great exit actually there by the Alpine Racing car. He's going to close in here. Going to see that draft close them up, and I think unfortunately the car ahead of the SimHQ machine will give him just enough draft to stay ahead here. You see that gap not really changing. It's kind of pulling them both closer to it rather than allowing the Alpine car to get past. But I think we'll see an opportunity here if they can go for it as they go high across the line. Alpine stays to the mid. Oh, bit of contact with the wall there for SimHQ. Dives in the middle, 3 wide. Renault Alpine Racing goes through the middle, 3 wide into turn 1. That is a phenomenal move. My gosh, that took absolute guts from Hendrik de Zwarts there. What a move.
Well, with only an hour and go, Rachel, we probably will see more brave and heroic decisions made by these drivers, and Hendricks was probably the first one to pull the trigger on that to go 3 wide into turn 1. And like you said, that takes a lot of guts to do, and he definitely showed that.
That's a last 20 minutes move.
That's a last lap move.
That was nuts. The Renault guys are clearly all for racing. Here's me talking about, taking it careful, finishing the race, and Renault were like, no,
not today.
Hold my beer. I'm going for it.
They certainly are as they continue. They still have a ways to go, though, to catch up to the Unified Performance Racing Ferrari of Justin Hess. About, I would probably say over 30 seconds at the very least, because the next car in front of them for position overall is the Team Cosmos of David Santiago, who's 23 seconds ahead of them, so they have quite a bit of work to do.
Yeah, there's definitely quite a bit of work to do, and I think that the CRHQ car will have to pit in a minute for a new fire suit for the driver, because could be a little smelly in there after that turn one they just had. But this is definitely spiced up quite a bit, and it's an exciting one for us as Prototype's lapping past here. We'll see what they can do with this one, as that gap has dramatically opened up, actually, more than I expected it to, since that one lap.
It certainly has. It's gained to about 2.4 seconds between the two drivers right now as they continue on their way. And it's going to be a difficult climb for Connor Denny to see if he can catch him. He has his teammate, though, behind him, Brian Van Biscome, who is in the SimHQ Motorsports 2 car, about 1 seconds back right now. He having to get around that same BMW. I'm pretty sure he's a little concerned now every time he sees a Corvette come up to behind him.
Oh yeah, I definitely think confused and concerned and scared would be a factor in that one, but it'll make him think twice, which is always a factor. But Renault Alpine Racing up from 24th to, not 24th, so it's overall in the field. They have gained 7 spots so far. They're currently running in second place from 9th on the grid for the GT field. That's a big gain.
It certainly is, and talk about another big gain right now. The TNT Racing Carbon team, they started 7th on the grid. They've moved up to 2nd, so 5 spots gained right now for that TNT Racing Carbon. If you want to talk about big movers and shakers right now, of course, currently Scott McIntyre still in that LMP2 car right now, has yet to make a driver swap, but probably will be the next time they come down pit road. Hate to say, probably the biggest loser overall would have to go to that number 17 of Hard Promise Racing. Started 6, is 36 overall and 17th in class. So a tough break for car number 17 here, as they'll have to try to find a way to make up 7 laps in this race, which is going to be pretty much, you can't do that here in less than an hour to go.
Possible, I don't think at all, even in the wildest expectations, but hey, stranger things have happened. People crashed out, so you never know.
You never know indeed right now, as we have completed 57 laps here at Daytona International Speedway, under an hour to go here for the CMS iRacing Team Endurance Series, as the 14 actually had a big problem. The Pneumatic Motorsports Purple team of Jimmy Hume missed the bus stop, which is going to be a big loss of time, as his teammate in the blue car, Jason Lundy, will go to the inside, and he has a little bit of time to make up to make sure he doesn't get passed by Mike Brunette in the Black Roads Bandit Racing, but we'll have to see on the replay how he overshot that corner.
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, that does happen. Sometimes you just lock up and don't get it right. You have to go straight, and you kind of commit to that penalty. It's not going to be great for them, especially on such a high-speed run from through NASCAR 3 and 4, but these are the breaks in racing. You choose to spin that car out, possibly crash, or just continue straight and go through. Time penalty is better than repairs.
Certainly is, and of course it's not as long of a time penalty if you think about it, like you brought out, compared to coming down pit road to spend a minute or two when you can only really give up a second or two if you cut the course. So of course the first casualty of a cone has actually been taken out by Jimmy Hume when he had to cut the course through the bus stop chicane, but he'll continue on his way as he drops down to 6th position, 17 seconds ahead of Mike Brunette in the Back Road Bandit Racing LMP2. As we continue here at Daytona International Speedway, we'll take a look, see if anybody else is on the move right now in either class. In LMP2, right, we have a battle for P3 in the GTE class. It's actually a fan favorite right now for those of you who are fans of Alex LaRose. He is actually holding on in 3rd position, trying to get around right now for that 4th position, as it looks like Brian Van Buscome is trying to get on the outside, get through him out of the International Horseshoe, will continue on his way, dropping Alex down to 4th position. They're not too far behind from the sister car in the GTE class, with a LMP2 hot on their heels through the kink as they head up to the Western Horseshoe.
Yeah, they do, and this could be an opportunity. Of course, both of the Sim HQ cars are really, really close here, so PG-13 going to be keeping an eye on what they can do with this, see if they can use this as an opportunity. But of course, they did just get past them once. They could get past again. It's close enough that this could still change. Of course, we still have pit stops to go. We only got 50 minutes left to go. There's plenty of time for this. They could still take those 2 spots. and see themselves getting second in this one if they can really put an actual move on this. Of course, we'll see how fast the other driver for PG-13 is. And of course, being Cameron Bidwell, both drivers, of course, from Club Indiana on iRacing, so we'll see if they can bring it.
We certainly can. We'll see if they can bring it indeed, but one team who is bringing it right now, the Can-Am Express team, car number 85 in a BMW right now, as they are continuing, and they have something special compared to any other car out on track. They have had 0 incidents whatsoever, so they are currently on the way for the consistency award here for the CMS iRacing Team Endurance Series. Currently driven by Brian Sableski, who is sitting in 12th position in class and doing a great performance right now as they continue on the way, 27th overall.
Pretty impressive, to be fair, because side by side here, sorry. PG-13 and SimHQ side by side going into the International Horseshoe, and they'll make that pass nicely executed there by Alex LaRose. He'll get past there, secure that spot now into the 3rd place, as he can go after, hopefully, SimHQ Motorsports number 3 just ahead of them. Although we've got the number 2 car behind them, piloted by Brian Van Bushcon, trying to find a way through here, trying to take that place back again. But getting no incidents in endurance races is actually really impressive, because you're guaranteed to almost get off track somewhere. It's the nature of the beast in iRacing, because you just clip a corner a little too much and it's an off track.
Pretty much. That just shows the consistency and the cleanness that team has overcome. Of course, some of the other drivers who have had a clean run so far, Unified Performance Racing, Justin has only 1. And then the Longhorn Lone Star team, Phil Elmore, car 78, in 8th place in class in their Ferrari, has had a good run, only 2 incident points in GTE class. And for those in the LMP2 class, I don't think anyone has gotten away with 0 incidents. I think everyone in that class has had some form of an incident throughout the duration of tonight's race in the LMP2 class, especially for a couple who we talked about earlier.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a lot of place to do that, and opportunities to have little moments, so it's impressive, really. It really is. It bears repeating that it's so impressive to be able to do that. And in terms of our leaders, though, right now, Revo Satellite Racing on a clean run here, 42 seconds ahead of TNT Carbon. Unified Performance Racing also having a really, really clean race today. No real competition for them as well. The gap's huge, and it's been incredibly impressive with how they're pulling this one off. These 2 leaders of class are really showing why they're in those positions.
But you know what? There's still a lot at stake. I mean, we still have our 2nd round coming up at Sebring. Of course, these 2 teams that we're going to be watching, Unified Performance and Revo Satellite Racing, yes, they're probably going to be the fan favorites and the team drivers to watch all season long, but Sebring is going to be a big change, of course. It's not going to be as high speed as what we see here at Daytona, but as long as you have the car set up and make sure that the suspension survives the track for the duration of the race, we could possibly see some different winners when we come back.
Yeah, certainly is, and that could always change. Sebring's an entirely different race. Sebring feels more like a street circuit than being on an airfield. It has a totally different feel to Daytona. Daytona's consistency and speed. Sebring's bumpy, it's rough, it's twisty and turny. Whole different racetrack, and we'll see, I think, different performance and different winners, maybe.
We certainly can possibly see that right now, but as we continue to watch throughout the field, of course, the LMP2s are still going to be David Williams in the Revo Satellite Racing, having a 43-second advantage over Scott McIntyre in the TNT Racing Carbon, and then rounding out your top 3, Lee Peterson in the Imperial Motorsports car. As we continue on your way through here, less than 50 minutes to go here. Drivers have completed 61 laps around Daytona International Speedway. Of course, when we run the 24 hours this coming weekend at Daytona on the iRacing service, there's going to be a couple of triple-digit numbers we'll be seeing when we come to a close of 24 hours of racing.
No, absolutely. That will definitely be a factor. And a lot of people will dump safety rating on these endurance events. It happens, and it's always crazy to see just how big those numbers could be. But at the end of the day, it's one of those things you can earn back pretty quickly from one clean endurance race. So.
And, this race here that we see these drivers competing on, we talked about some of the CMS teams having a couple of cars running this coming week's Daytona 24, and, of course, several other drivers. This is a great race for drivers to dial in their setups a little bit, maybe even work on proper driver's changes, maybe also work on working around lap traffic if they're in one of the higher splits that have all three classes. Of course, here in this race, we don't have the GTD class or GT3 spec cars running here like what we see this coming weekend at Daytona, but that's going to be a factor to consider to still get to work their way around lap traffic as well as utilizing lap traffic like we talked about. And so far, some teams have utilized that to excellent advantage.
Yeah, they really have, but it's the biggest factor in winning endurance races. It's about making sure you manage traffic well. The better you do it, the better you do. It's not something to be put up with. It's not something to be tolerated. It's something to master. You master it, you win races. There's things very close up towards the Western Horseshoe, just ahead of your class leader there. I believe one of those is the Can-Am. No, that's there on pit road. It's the Can-Am racing car with the, I believe that was the mac and cheese machine ahead of them, just getting past Craft Dinner Racing. They've actually moved up. They're now at the back of the main pack of the prototype cars, but we've had a few other teams drop down. Cosmos, who are a couple laps down here. Inferno Racing Dragon also laps down. Hard Promises. I don't think we keep them, unfortunately.
Certainly is going to be interesting to see if they're able to continue on their way. We'll have to keep track of that. But as we continue to watch through the field right now, David A. Williams is currently your race leader in LMP2. Justin Hess is your leader in the GTE class as we continue on their way. Trying to find a little information about our top two, or our top class leaders right now. Of course, Revo Satellite Racing is a very popular team right now. Of course, Paul Darling, who was in the car earlier, a well-known sports car racer when it comes to the iRacing service, competing in a wide variety of sports car and endurance racing leagues all throughout the service, and has racked up several major wins, of course.
Yeah, really have, and it shows just the consistency of their performance, which is always a massive, massive factor.
As we also keep an eye on one of the drivers, our GTE leader, Justin Hess, as he is currently out on the track in his Ferrari. Of course, he originates from the Georgia Club region here on the iRacing service. Has been on here, has about 45 career road wins on the service, and of course 137 top fives. His most recent win was actually on the iRacing service recently, was back at Suzuka, competing in the Dallara Formula IR, which is of course one of the new cert cars on the iRacing service with Dallara. Of course, Dallara out on the track with the P2 cars, but Rachel, if you ever got the chance to drive one of those cars, that is a ton of fun.
Oh, absolutely. The Indy cars were always my personal favorite other than sports cars. And the IR01 is a phenomenal beast. It's really, really rapid. But the Indy cars have a real visceral feeling for open wheelers. I'd say they're more similar to the, whilst they have a lot of downforce, they have more in common with the Skippies than they do with the Formula One cars. They're about driver experience, and the driver talent puts the car to work. A Formula One car, it's about the setup. It's about everything being dialed in. Makes you fast, but you just feel so much more connected to the road. And when they run on places like Sebring, oh my gosh, they're amazing. But yeah, GT cars going there, and the prototype cars here, and these Dalaras going to Sebring next, they'll have a very same experience. It is a very guttural experience.
They certainly will have a ton of experience, an exciting experience right now as we continue on our way here. And of course, when we had our our pole sitters earlier on today, and Rachel, why don't you tell a little bit about a special award that they received?
Yeah, absolutely, of course. Poster Award for LMP2, which goes to, of course, Revo Satellite Racing, and same for GTE to Unified Performance Racing. Gridfinder providing the awards for them. And this, of course, can take us into talking about Gridfinder, who are a phenomenal sponsor of the series. Is your go-to resource for sim racing leagues. They're currently home to over 500 leagues. That's crazy. Across all gaming platforms, and cover 10 different sims. Need a commentator or broadcaster for your races? Search Gridfinder. Need a livery designer for your next car? Gridfinder. Gridfinder has teamed up with the sim racing community online to create a sim racing calendar in support of men's health charity CALM, which is the Campaign Against Living Miserably. 100% of the profits will be going to CALM. And you can, of course, find information on them and on all the services Gridfinder can offer you by going to grid.finder.com. That is grid-finder.com to purchase a calendar and keep track of all your races and support a great charity. Gridfinder is the home of online sim racing leagues.
And of course, one of those sim racing leagues that we are covering here today is, of course, the CMS iRacing Team Endurance Championship right now, as a couple of green flag pit stops are happening once again for our P2 class right now, as we have a battle for P3 once again. Jason Liddy just came off pit road, but Leif Peterson under heavy pressure from the CMS Pro Team Summit team of Jordan Johnson. He'll look to the inside, get around Leif Peterson. He'll move up into third position and pull away from Leif Peterson as they dive it into turn one. A little bit of tire smoke from one of the cars in front of them, but they continue on the way as they are getting ready to approach heavy GTE traffic in front of them.
Yeah, that's going to be a real mess to get through. Hopefully they can do a lot of it on the straights, but I don't think they'll get that lucky, unfortunately. CMS Pro Summit and TNT Carbon just ahead of that group, actually, dealing with that bulk of traffic as we're in that pit cycle, so it's really shaking up the running orders here and bringing them into that pack of cars. A lot of it actually around your race leader, even though they're not on the same lap as them, in the GTE class. Unified Performance Racing there, just in Hess, currently muddled up with a bunch of cars lapped down from even him.
Certainly is, so we'll have to see if Justin Hess is able to negotiate and stay clear when the LMP2s catch up to him, but he's got plenty of room to wiggle. He's got a 45-second lead over Brian Van Biscome in the Sim HQ Motorsports 2 Chevrolet Corvette, as he is just now coming out of the International Horseshoe. So he has a little bit of wiggle room, Justin Hess does, over Brian, so we'll have to see what he does and is able to accomplish as they continue here at Daytona.
Yeah, it's definitely been a crazy race for us so far in this one, and we're about 40 minutes left on the race here, so we're coming down to those final pit stop windows for both sets of cars. Now we know everyone can make it if they pit from this point onwards, so that will be something I think a lot of the prototype teams are looking at definitely for this one, so we shall see those drivers coming in. Of course, David A. Williams in the Revo Satellite Racing Machine already made their driver swap. They're having a fantastic performance for themselves, and I gotta say, I'm really excited to see what's happening here with PG-13, because they are on the cycle well here, and I think they're looking to really recover some spots. Cameron Bidwell has swapped in 3 laps ago now for Alex LaRose, so they're still recouping positions here, and the lap times have been very consistent all race long after their incident. For Alex LaRose set the fastest lap of that car on lap 45 in the race for them about 15 laps ago. They've been really recovering hard here, and I'd love to see how this cycles out once the pits window has cleared.
Certainly is the case right now, as you know, we keep an eye on, of course, Alex LaRose to see if he can continue on his way here later on. But David A. Williams has been on a clinic. Of course, with the help of Paul Darling, they have lapped up to 6th position overall throughout the entire field. Mike Burnett in the Backroad Bandit Racing is the last car on the lead lap, some 1.5 minutes back from our race leader. So give it a little bit of time, he could possibly go a lap down, and we could have 5 cars on the lead lap here before the closing of today's race. So a big show of strength, of course, for David A. Williams, who's been on the service for quite some time, since 2012. He has collected a career total of 51 official iRacing wins here on the iRacing service. Of course, his last win was actually in the same LMP2 car at Watkins Glen. So he definitely knows a thing or two about getting around these LMP2 cars on any circuit he competes on, as he continues on his way here to a possible victory here at Daytona.
Yeah, it's definitely looking like he can pull that one off. It's been a really impressive run from him so far, as just watched the Poggers in a Blanket run. Not Poggers in a Blanket, that was a different car. Deliveries always keep confusing me sometimes. I believe that was going to be our, as I cycle very rapidly through all the cars I can find on field, Imperial Motorsports Shake car had a bit of a sideways moment there. They got themselves through and everything running back out in order as they needed to. But overall, the field's really progressing well here, and I think it's looking strong for our 2 class leaders as we have the final pit stop for Unified Sim Racing in the pits here. And it is looking really good for them. Kurt Poulter actually in the car there, so they're swapping out finally here from Justin Hess. It's definitely just about enough for the fair time rule, and that pit stop shall keep them in the lead, I believe.
Okay, this is kind of surprising because Mr. Kurt Poulter, for those of you who've been a part of broadcasting with myself and Ryan Bauer, who are a part of the BMW Car Club of America, He's in a Ferrari, and he's of course one of the main officials for the BMW Car Club of America Sim Racing Series. So it's interesting to see him behind the wheel of the prancing horse. Can he maybe have something up his sleeve to take home a possible checkered flag here? I'm gonna have to definitely talk to him about that, why he's in a Ferrari, but he's still coming off a pit road. He still has about a 46-second advantage, now possibly a 1-minute advantage right now over the Bosphorus Motorsports Green of Emery Sassi, who's made up some ground after that pit stop. So we'll have to see if he's able to hold on to the race lead as the laps continue to wind down. 39.5 minutes left to go on the clock.
Or is this a grand conspiracy on the part of BMW's manufacturing efforts to sabotage the win for Unified Performance Racing? Controversy.
Controversies, we love it. We love a good controversy before the end of a race, Rachel.
We'll have to decide, you the viewer, whether or not he's here to win the race or here to sabotage it. And he'll hate me for saying that, but you know what? I like drama, and why not? Issues for the 37 car, I think it is, father and son, Motorsports. It's not going great for them right now.
Yep, Jeff Hooton right now is behind the wheel of that number 37, trying to see what the situation is, but he is extremely off the pace
36,
right now.
Sorry, we just got the wrong number.
36.
Is there 36 car, Bosphorus Motorsports Green. Oh, they are hecking slow right now. They've had a bit of an issue. I'm not sure what it was, but they've been passed by nearly everybody. Have they run out of motion lotion? Are they trying to save super hard here? Because they've been really slow since the start of the lap.
I'm looking at it, some of the replay right now, and yeah, they seem to be possibly out of full. They are limping it down there below the yellow line here to stay out of the main racing groove. But they have probably ran out of fuel. I mean, it shows that they're still having up to speed, but they probably have it on the lowest possible.
They're coasting it, yeah. They're coasting it. The engine's off. Either they've just run out or they're just shutting down to coast. Oh, terrible timing.
This is going to be a bad idea. That would have probably been better to cut the course.
Yeah, he should have just stayed high and cut the course, but I don't know whether they'll make it back here or not.
He's going to duck it down below the yellow
engine.
Yeah, I'm not hearing.
I'm going to replay it for you here to see what happened just there.
Let's take a look at that. Ooh, this is for the overall
lead replay, actually. Sorry, satellite and CMS. Been very active.
Let's take a look right here as we take a look at the incident replay as we see the Revo satellite racing of David Williams. He gets through there, no problem. Out of turn 6. Ooh, big situation. Oh my goodness, that's a hold your breath moment. And two BMWs go in front of him as the seas have parted for David Williams. I'm pretty sure they're going to have to change the driver suit on that driver.
The Bosphorus have made it to pit road. They've limped that car somehow. I think he had his feet at the bottom of the car, pedaling along like Fred Flintstone, but he made it to his box. I think he did. Yes.
Yes, he did.
Box, refueling. So they've managed to make it. That was a save right there.
That was a big save right there. And of course, they lost a ton of time, but they are able to get back on pit road. They are currently sitting 6th position right now as Turgut Kavanagh will now come in and replace Emery and take over the car to finish out today's race.
Yeah, that's the one thing you never want to have happen in a race. Running out of fuel is a terrible feeling. And sometimes that can happen when you get caught by cautions, for example, in things like IndyCar or NASCAR, but obviously not having cautions here is not something we expect to see. Just a strategy error going one lap too long, trying to just eke it out. Yeah,
that's the thing here. We will not see any full course yellows here on this series. Of course, most of these are going to just be local yellows. So if an incident is out, the officials and stewards will notify them with a local yellow to where drivers need to just be cautious, try and slow down, maybe not overtake a competitor until they have cleared the incident right now. But for right now, for David Williams, he's working around one of the lap LMP2 cars of Hard Promise Racing, Wayne Hutchinson. They've had a hard break here tonight. This is definitely the tough break award where they just had no luck whatsoever. Nick Kuhn had a great run in the beginning, but something happened late in the going. Wayne Hutchinson's trying to just limp the car home.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's doing what he can here to make this one go through. It's been a tricky one, but they'll have to do what they can because, of course, every point you can salvage from this race, even if you've had a bad run today at Daytona, every point you can salvage here will be something you can really add to your race at Sebring. And it adds to the counter overall, because if someone gets taken out in another race, that's points you have over them.
It certainly is, and this is going to be a big hole for these drivers to try and overcome, especially with only being 5 races, or 5 rounds, of course, here for the CMS iRacing Team Endurance Series. So not a whole lot of wiggle room. One faulty race, and it can end a chance of a championship run for you. As one of the drivers who we were talking about finally has made a driver change, the TNT Racing Carbon. McIntyre has gotten out of the car after a very strong run, and Scott Hensley has gotten behind the wheel, so he will try to go out there and make up some ground. He's about 15 seconds back from the Pneumatic Motorsports Blue of Jason Lundy.
Yeah, he is, and he's doing what he can with this one to try and make it work here. Pneumatic have been having a pretty strong performance for their team, in fact, up in the prototype class. A really strong showing. Their cars have had a good outing between blue and purple, currently running in 4th and 5th place there respectively, although they have got a car on the higher side. I believe that's the Rebellion Machine, who is a lap down or 2 laps down from them. Trying to make things a little bit more spicy for them, I think, as they stay relatively in line. I will keep my eye, though, on Unified Performance Sim Racing and GTE. They are miles ahead of second place SimHQ3 and SimHQ2. So behind them, PG13 are still in the frame for this one. They could still catch up. They are in striking distance of 2 and 3. Some good traffic, and they will have a good shot at this. So for those of you who are out there as fans of PG13, I mean, there's a lot of you watching the broadcast. Plenty of time for this to happen, but it's still looking like a very strong performance after that crash.
It is. It's going to be an interesting situation. Of course, it's 3 Corvettes versus 1 Ferrari, as the top 4 is right now currently in battle right now. Of course, Unified Performance Racing adds about a 20-second lead over the SimHQ and the PG13. And then, of course, you round out your top 5 with the Renault Alpine Racing of Francois Brou in his Alpine Corvette. As we continue here underway, we have 33 minutes left to go. We're going to see what's going to happen here. Will we see our race leader, Paul Darling, now getting into the car right now? So a driver change for the closing minutes for the Revo Satellite Racing team, as he has just been released off pit road. Things are about to heat up, as well as the CMS Pro Summit team and the Imperial Motorsports team also have come down pit road. No driver change just yet. Jordan Johnson and Leif Peterson going to stay in their respective cars, as Jimmy Hune and Jason Lundy are going to see if they can try to make up ground to see if they can catch up to the top 2nd and 3rd place car, as Johnson has been released off pit road. Leif Peterson still waiting to be released. Waiting still. Of course, this is supposed to treacherous time for a driver waiting on pit road to be released. Is just excruciatingly long to wait, as Leif Peterson finally is released off pit road and will rejoin the track.
Yeah, it's one of the worst feelings in the world, sitting there watching the cars ahead of you pull away, knowing that gap's opening up, and it happens. The gaps don't really change too much as long as you don't mess up too badly, especially with pit limiters. It just is one of those things you have to tolerate, but it puts you out to the worst place in traffic like this. Should be okay though, should filter out relatively well for them, but I believe we are going to cut to a little commercial break here. It's our last one for the race. After that, it'll be uninterrupted. I'm having a stroke. Uninterrupted coverage until the end, folks.
Welcome back to coverage here of the CMS iRacing Team Endurance Series. Of course, Taylor Burris, Rachel Whitford bringing you all the coverage along with all the pictures courtesy of Mr. Ryan Bauer as we continue on our way with less than an hour or less than half an hour to go here at Daytona International Speedway. Revo Satellite Racing's Paul Darling back again behind the wheel of his LMP2, leading here once again at Daytona as Unified Performance Racing. Kurt Poulter in his Ferrari are currently leading in the GTE class. And Rachel, surprisingly, for 150 minutes of racing, very clean for the most part.
Yeah, it certainly has been. Unlike your pronunciation of my surname, which is Whiteford, not Whitford. It's the third time you've done that one.
3 strikes and I'm out, huh?
Yep, 3 strikes and you're out. There you go. There. Go on, get out of here.
I'm gone. Good night,
It's
everybody.
been a very clean race, actually. It's been a fantastic run we've had so far. Again, most of not these incidents have all been little single car donks that have turned into someone being collected, which has always been unfortunate, but it's definitely been a general product of a really strong attitude of clean racing in the series.
It certainly has. As we continue on the way, you're actually watching Paul Darling right now getting by some lap traffic. Some great camera work as we're now riding on board from Paul Darling as we watch and see all the drama that ensues in front of them as they come out of the Western Horseshoe before they get to turn 6. See him going up through the gears to try to catch up through the field and seeing if he can continue to grow the gap that he currently has had here since the drop of the green flag as he continues to go up onto the high banks here at Daytona International Speedway. And it's just showing the amazing performance that he's had since pretty much the start of this race. And of course, we saw that at the pre-race practice race we saw last week.
Yeah, certainly did. And it's, again, I think it's going to be our first real chance to see something different from these guys, because this is our second race seeing them at Daytona for us, the commentary team. So we're basing all our knowledge off of exactly that, Daytona. And it's a very oddball track because it's largely comprised of a NASCAR track. So it's kind of flat out for a lot of it. It's very different to everything else we'll face. And I think we'll really see what these teams are capable of at Sebring.
We certainly will as we see what happens at Sebring as we continue to go on here. As we are closing in to do one more through the field, we'll give them, big trouble right now for one of the drivers. Who was that? Big issue in the Western Horseshoe. That's going to be Scott Hensley in the TNT Racing Carbon, who had a big issue right in front of him, able to avoid the situation, but another close call for our LMP2 drivers as he continues to go on his way, but we're going to have to get a replay of that.
I believe it's a pretty simple case, unfortunately. I believe it was the Black Road Bandit racing machine. It squeezed out the 57 from the GTE field. Didn't really give him much room in the corner there. All Balls Racing got squished, and that unfortunately kind of tipped the prototype around them, and they became a snowplow for the cones as the, I guess the GT car didn't want to touch any of those nasty traffic cones because it made the prototype clear them all for them.
It certainly did, as it's a big issue for Mike Brunette in the Backroad Bandit Racing LMP2, was having such a strong run as well inside the top 6 for most of the race, still on the lead lap, but it's safe to say when he comes across the line, he's probably going to be sitting 7th or 8th position possibly. We'll keep an eye on timing and scoring when he comes across the line here. He's still going to sit in 6th position for now, but he's going to lose a ton of time on his competitors.
Yeah, certainly is, and it's one of those situations they're just squeezing a little too hard. I mean, we do often call as GT drivers the prototypes the bulldozer class, because normally it's them bulldozing us, not us using them as one. So that is definitely a twist on that old nickname, but the class work here has been phenomenal overall. Traffic's been something that's been really well managed by a lot of the drivers, and I'm excited with how they've really done with that one. But again, Daytona makes it a lot easier with how much space there often is in many of these places. Then in our GTE class, it's not a humongous lead for Unified Performance as they are just miles ahead of everybody else. SimHQ Motorsports 2 and 3, they are back there, and they are close, and so is PG-13, and the clock's running down. But as we talk about clock and things running down, clocks are like an image, aren't they? They're like a painting of time. And speaking of images, Visual Images is a science and graphics company based in the United States. They do just about everything from simple outdoor signage to elaborate art pieces. And car decals as well, vehicle wraps, everything you could possibly want. Their specialty is one-of-a-kind indoor signage that is also functional art. Visual Images can design and build build a totally visually unique for you, the customer. Matter of fact, winners of the iRTES series will receive a trophy created and produced by Visual Images just for this series, a one-of-a-kind piece. The trophies will be beautiful reminders to the winners, and they will be proud to display them in their home or office. Visit their website if you want to see what they can offer to you, visualimages.co, that is visualimages.co. And, of course, they're Canadian, I think. And see for yourself their beautiful and functional work. That was a segue, baby.
That certainly is a segue. And speaking of segues, why don't we segue into some more wonderful visual images provided by our wonderful cameraman and producer Ryan Bauer as we give you a through the field for the last time here as we continue on our way here at Daytona. In the LMP2 class, Revo Satellite Racing's Paul Darling currently holds on to the race lead once again after doing a driver switch here a little bit ago on the last pit stop attempt. As we continue to go 26 seconds back. That's right, 26 seconds back. DMS Pro Summit Team Jordan Johnson has just now entered turn number 1 here to start his lap 79 and see if he can find a way to catch up to Paul Darling, which is going to be a tall order. Back in third position, the Imperial Motorsports Sheikh, Leif Peterson. They have not left the top 5 since the drop of the green flag. They have been one of the most consistent teams out there. And of course, Leif Peterson I consider calling Mr. Consistency because he's always finishing inside the top 5 or top 10 whenever he races in any sports car and endurance race. Back in fourth position, the Pneumatic Motorsports Purple, Jimmy Hume. Probably one of my favorite colors and combinations. Of course, black, white, and purple. You can't go wrong with that when you're out there with a race car as they continue on their way racing here. And of course, another black, white, and purple car in fifth position, the Backroad Bandit Racing. They just got snowplowed, in fact, or used as one with a GTE car here as they are trying to work their way through some lap traffic. They are running in fifth. TNT Racing Carbon had a close call as well. Scott Hensley had to go to the outside around Mike Burnett as well as that GTE car when that incident happened. They are now running in sixth position, trying to hold off some hard chargers right now, who is in seventh. The DDM Racing of Douglas Ritter right now, a very quiet night, and looking through and seeing if he had a driver change at all. I think he's one of the few drivers who did not do a driver change at all during this race, so it's going to be interesting to see, is he going to have anyone to help him out towards the end? Meanwhile, back in eighth, 19 seconds back, is the number 4, the sister car of the Pneumatic Motorsports, this time the blue car. Jason Lundy right now, close calls for him as he's working his way through some lap traffic in the GTE class to see if he can find a way to break into the top 7. SimHQ Motorsports 1, Scott Gillespie right now is in a tight battle with John Taylor Tammy for those final positions inside the top 10. He just was passed as we now go to John Taylor Tammy, who is one of the hard chargers early on. Fell back, had some issues, but is able to recover nicely with the top 10 finish possible. Back in the 11th position, Father-Son Motorsports Jeff Hooton now in the purple and green, one of the combinations colors we've seen that kind of confuses us a little bit here in the booth, but he is running in 11th position. In 12th, you'll find Penguin RC Complex Sim Racing Brian Sohn, currently sitting in 12th position. He's having a great run, not too far behind from the Father and Son Motorsports car as they are trying to keep up pace and move into the 11th position. 13th place, you'll find 43 seconds back, Poggers in a blanket, Michael Quinn right now currently driving this LMP2 to the finish as we are closing in on the time. And then 14th, Eric Mahoney in the Craft Dinner Racing. They've been all over the place. They've been to the back. They've been up towards the middle of the field. Can they round out with a good, strong finish here? And we'll find out as they continue on their way. 15th in class, the first car one lap down in behind them, of course, in the LMP2 class that we've seen. Here's a further lap back. Team Cosmos, David Santiago, who's actually getting ready to come down pit road. 16th position in class, Kevin Galvin in the Inferno Racing Dragons, one of the Bolt colors, I would say, but of course it's for the Dragon, so a great dragon color combination. He's running 16th in class. And rounding out your 17-car class field at LMP2, Hard Promise Racing's Wayne Hutchinson.
Over in GTE, Unified Performance Racing have had a phenomenal race so far. Kurt Bolter showing he isn't just a BMW driver, he can drive Ferraris too. He's doing a fantastic job up there. SimHQ Motorsports number 3, the 56 car is driven by Connor Denny currently, and they have had a phenomenal race with their sister car running behind them pretty much the entire race actually, as they've had a fantastic effort for the SimHQ house, and or maybe it'll help that bet, as driven behind by Brian Van Booskamp, who's back in that car for SimHQ Motorsports 2, doing a great job as well. They're currently actually fighting here. Oh, a little bit of contact there with PG13 Racing, who will come up next, as you saw that on the screen. PG13 Racing not driving very PG13. Cameron Bidwell behind the wheel of that car as he tried to find his way through, looking for an opportunity. They've had a very tumultuous race from a crash early on to recovery here to 4th place. It is a fantastic drive right now for them. Behind them is Renault Alpine Racing and their Renault Corvette, Renault C8, whichever it is. They've had a great race. Very busy time on track, and Francois Bleu has had some top laps in that vehicle. Longhorn Racing behind them, the Lone Star car, driven by Phil Elmore, is currently running back in 6th place in class there, having a good day out for Longhorn team. He's currently up 8 places. Behind them is Bosphorus Motorsport Blue with Hassan Khan Ezgin. Sorry, I do apologize for the name pronunciation there. Has had a good race today, up 3 spots. And their sister car, Bosphorus Green, is up, well, exactly where they started, is in 9th place in class, having had a good, strong day today with Tugut Kavuchi. Again, I apologize, my name pronunciation does suck. 10th place in class is Can-Am Express, driven by Brian Slabinski. He's doing a good job today. They've had a very up and down race. They're currently up 10 spots, so a big mover in class there for them. 11th place in class is Auto X Sim Motorsports, the team of SCCA autocross drivers, currently piloted there by Ben Friedman, doing a phenomenal job on track for them. They're up 4 spots. Kamikaze down multiple laps here, like a number of our cars are. Liam Rosiski is behind the wheel there. Had a up and down race. They're currently down 1 spot. Team Brake Fade currently up 4 places, piloted by James Foster. They're currently running in the 13th place in class. Brian Slabinski doing again a phenomenal. That's again, I'm looking at the wrong car. That's the Can-Am Express. James Foster doing a great job. NGP Motorsports with Vinny Lima doing a great deal today. They're up 4 places from where they started. Can-Am Racing currently up down 3 places. Chris Hudson behind the wheel of that BMW, with the sister Longhorn car currently on pit road, piloted by nobody because they're doing a driver swap right here at the end of the race. 10 minutes to go. Someone get their fair time in. Larry Ford, I believe, getting behind the wheel of that car. Shame it's not an actual Ford. We don't seem to have any of those in the field, but there's some damage to the rear wings, so they have to get that one repaired. All Balls Racing there with Jay Daggett behind the wheel. They are currently down 5 spots. Not been the best day for them, but there's plenty of time and season left to go. Triple R Racing behind that is Leonard Burke, is in the 17th spot in class, doing a great deal today. MMTR are down in 35th place. They started 36th, so they're up 1 overall, but they've been in a bit of a scrap throughout today's race. And Can-Am Canada is currently last place. They were so much higher up in the field. They had a great race. They've had some unfortunate times and some contact today, which has pushed them down, but Drew Delica is doing his best with his car and pushing it forward as hard as they can. Hopefully Sebring will be kinder to the Canadian team.
And with that, that is your full field rundown, brought to you by, of course, Penguin RC. Of course, those are our great company here to help sponsor us here, as they're actually still on the track here with their race team. The Penguin RC race team is actually inside the top 10, running in 9th, holding off the father and son Motorsports of Jeff Hooten right now. So a great effort for Penguin RC and the Complex Simworks Racing, as we are now approaching 13 and a half minutes to go on the clock. So the clock's ticking, not a lot of time left, and great opportunity for some drivers to see if they can capitalize on it.
Yeah, definitely is, and capitalizing now is probably the opportunity you've been looking for all race. This is the go time. We've got 10 minutes left to go in our race here, so this is when you really got to put it down. Put everything you've got left in that car into it. No one's really likely to catch Unified Performance Racing. SimHQ Motorsports look pretty clear. PG13 currently looking like a podium spot here in 3rd, which after their crash early on is a phenomenal recovery if they cannot be caught by SimHQ Motorsports 2. In fact, we'll look at their lap times to really see what they're doing here. Cameron Bidwell last time 41.8. And if we look at SimHQ 2, Brian van der Bloemskamp was a 41.8. So they're so evenly matched.
They certainly are, and they're definitely putting on a great show for all of those who are out there watching here today to see if he can finally transfer over into the podium spot. Of course, all the fans of PG-13 Racing, Alex LaRose and Cameron Bidwell, are hoping they can see their favorite drivers being interviewed for a podium finish here tonight. But of course, there's a lot of still great racing action coming to us here for the CMS Racing Series here with the iRacing Team Endurance. Full schedule is, of course, next time in February, we'll be racing at Sebring. Then, of course, round 3 will be, of course, at probably when it comes to sports car and endurance racing, the trophy, the granddaddy of them all, Le Mans, will be going to. Of course, rounding out event round 4 and 5 will be at Monza and Road Atlanta. So a wide variety of tracks of different ways of racing, of course, with how difficult it could be here. So it's going to be interesting to see who can come out on top and who can be surviving these historic and great race circuits.
Oh, absolutely. Some great circuits coming up. I'm super excited for all the ones we get to come and visit here. And it's going to be an amazing time to see these cars race, because every single one of them brings something completely different to the racing experience, Taylor.
It certainly can, as we are continuing here at Daytona International Speedway. Of course, great camera work by our producer Ryan Bauer, as you can see the Ferris wheel and some of the other carnival rides that if you go to the actual Rolex 24 you can go and have fun with. But right now we are on board with the Inferno Racing Dragon of George Dean. He's 7 laps down right now, so he's sitting 31st overall. A tough break for him, but he's going to see what he can do. But he's going to try and see if he can catch up to Wayne Hutchinson and the Hard Promise Racing. Of course, the Hard Promise Racing team will be competing in several other series here at Daytona throughout the week as they lead up to the Rolex 24 on the iRacing service as they work their way out of the Western Horseshoe, heading over to turn number 6.
Not a lot of race left to go here, so it's going to be a matter of trying to keep these cars as cool as possible. And the fight I'm definitely keeping my eyes on here is PG-13 and SimHQ2, as they are right next to each other on track. This could be so close here as your leader, River Satellite Racing, actually passes that group. In fact, they'll have a probably cleaner pass here on PG. No, it won't be a clean pass on PG-13. They're going to sit behind them. Because guess what? Revo know they don't have to rush here. They've got 26 seconds to play with and 7 minutes on the clock. So they can wait. They can take their time and make this clean. Because all they have to do now is finish.
They certainly do. Just finish, bring it home in one piece. And Paul Darling is the man to do it, as he will bring it to the checkered flag as you're on board with the SimHQ Motorsports 2 Corvette as they're coming up through the high banks of Daytona and through NASCAR Turn 1 and 2 before they head down the Daytona Superstretch, as you're on the back bumper of Paul Darling as he looks behind to see all the GTEs. Lights are glowing here, as you see here at Daytona International Speedway. If it wasn't for the lights, it'd be pitch black and very difficult to see. So one of the few tracks that will see a lot of lighting when we go to tracks such as Le Mans or Monza, it's going to be a little bit darker if we run into the night here for the CMS iRacing Team Endurance Championship.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's going to be exciting, and I think those are the tracks will definitely have definite evolutions in terms of nighttime racing. But Daytona's probably one of the easiest for them. There's so much light here, of course, provided by this being a fully manufactured circuit. Le Mans, Road Atlanta, and Sebring not quite as fully equipped, so the lights will be much more important on their vehicles than they are here at Daytona.
They certainly will be, and that's going to be very critical when that time comes. Of course, these cars are fitted with some very high-powered LED headlights to help them see out in front of them. Of course, any lighting can help determine whether to make a pass, avoid a collision, or maybe even stay on the racetrack here. Of course, looking at the track, there's quite a bit of rubber buildup off the corner exits here, so a great opportunity for drivers to see what will happen if they're able to manage their tires, which they have been doing for the most part, especially the Revo Satellite team and the Unified Performance Racing, who have been just unstoppable.
Oh, absolutely. And it's definitely been one of those heavy evolutions we see here that really shows how this thing's moving forwards for us as a race. They've had a fantastic outing today, and I think a lot of these teams have really shown some strength, but I've said it earlier in the race, and I'll say it again. Daytona is not a fair bar. It's too different from every other circuit we go to, other than perhaps Le Mans. Even then, that's significantly different. This track is unlike anything else we visit in the series, so I think it's going to be a big test to see what happens next.
It certainly will. We'll find that out on February 21st for your coverage here of the CMS iRacing Team Endurance Series at Sebring International Raceway. We'll bring you all the coverage. More details still to come on that, but still a lot of great racing action still to come here as we are under 10 minutes to go, about 7.5 minutes remaining for Paul Darling and for Kurt Poulter in the Unified Performance Racing Ferrari and the Revo Satellite Racing LMP2. Now, Rachel, one of the things that we need to talk about as well is also for drivers who want to try to make it to the end, is it best to maybe let a leader, if you're on those closing laps, to let by? So that way you're kind of on that same lap. So that way when the leader takes the white flag, you also will be taking the white flag compared to if you were in front where you have to run an extra lap.
Absolutely, and that will be definitely something that will be have to be factored in for those guys in terms of their fuel runs. Have they taken that into account? Have they got enough?
We'll soon find out here as we have now got 6 3/4 minutes left as they're continuing here. Paul Darling had the 26-second lead advantage. Looking through the LMP2 class, no major battles. Pretty much the biggest battle to keep an eye on is between Cameron Bidwell in the PG-13 Racing and the SimHQ Motorsports 2 Corvette of Brian Van Biscomi, who is currently now trying to get away from him or catch up to him as they go down the Daytona Superstretch. They just got passed by Scott Hensley in the TNT Racing Carbon P2 car as they approach the bus stop. Watch this, see if we see Hensley be patient. He will. He'll wait till they come out of the bus stop before making the pass, but it looks like Bidwell might have cut the course, so he might have to give up some time, which will be a big help to Brian as they come out of NASCAR turn 3 and 4.
Yeah, it really is, and that will be part where this really unfolds for them. That last run is going to be huge for everything, but oh, the time is so close now. It's nerve-biting, nerve-wracking, nail-biting, nerve-biting. That sounds really painful.
It does.
Don't do that.
Is it more painful than chipping a tooth, Rachel?
Yeah, I've been dealing with that all race, by the way. I chipped my tooth before I streamed on Thursday, and it's been great ever since because whilst it doesn't hurt normally, when I talk for too long, like 2 hours plus, my jaw starts to hurt because I'm trying to favour that side of my mouth, not slam my teeth together and possibly do more damage. So, yeah, it's been interesting. That definitely sounds like nerve biting, to be honest.
Of course, we'll hope everything goes well for you to get yourself back up to where you're when you start talking and don't hurt yourself anymore. So as we continue on our way here, under 5 minutes to go, Kurt Poulter, no pressure from behind whatsoever. He has over a 20-second advantage over Connor Denny in the SimHQ Motorsports number 3, as well as Paul Darling in the LMP2, a 28-second advantage over Jordan Johnson in the CMS Pro Summit team as they continue on their way. Still no major battles except for that battle for third place. We're going to keep an eye on that actually and watch that battle till we get towards the white flag. Brian is still trying to see if he can make a run, but he just gets caught up. Once he gets a good run, it seems like an LMP2 car or or a lap traffic of a GTE car get in the way to where he loses that time and momentum. He was 0.8 of a second back, now dropped back to about a 1.2 second gap between the two drivers as they come out of NASCAR turn number 4 right now as he's struggling to see if he can gain it. Looking at the two times between them, Rachel, it shows a big gap. I mean, a 140.54 for Bidwell, and then Brian ran a 140.92. So a tough break right now for Brian, and he doesn't have much time to catch up.
No, not at all. It's really close for them right now, and that's going to be a major component of this one, is that they haven't got a huge amount of time left to play with this. So it's about balancing that out and finding the right kind of setup here to take them home to that point. It's just... sometimes it all filters out at the end. Whatever you planned, now you're stuck with it.
Pretty much. You make the bed, you have to lay in it now as they continue on their way here. Another close battle also would have to be in the GTE class. This is the battle for 9th position. It's going to be between the Can-Am Express of Brian Sobleski and, of course, the Auto X Sim Motorsports of Ben Friedman as well. Those two BMWs going at it as they come across the line. 3 minutes left to go.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's going to be close with this one, and especially in certain places like the fight between second and third in the GTE class. That is still really close between PG-13 and SimHQ2 as they're battling here. It's not quite as close as it is to SimHQ3 ahead of them, but everything can change. One of those things of racing, everything could happen. But At the moment, Revo miles ahead, 27 seconds ahead of CMS Pro Summit. Imperial Shake are again a further 20 behind them, so not looking as close there. Performance, Unified Performance Racing doing a phenomenal job here. Got a big gap against Sim HQ3, but that's the real gap there. Second, third, fourth. What will it end as? Who knows? But we're
close.
now.
We are at it now as we are approaching the 2-minute warning here. Now, this isn't football. This is still, of course, a 2-minute warning for these drivers to continue on the way and push everything that they have. Basically, we're looking at about 2, maybe possibly 3 laps for these drivers. Closest battle in LMP2 right now has to be between DDM Racing, Douglas Ritter, and the Pneumatic Motorsports Blue of Jason Lundy right now. They have a little bit of leaders coming around. That's Jordan Johnson behind Lundy in the CMS Pro Summit team. A big send right there for Jason Lundy to make it to get around the lap traffic, and he helped gain a little time, but he might lose it off corner exit out of the Western Horseshoe as he is trying to see if he can break into the top 7.
He's doing everything he can here to try and get this one in, and it's not quite close just now, but he's doing absolutely everything possible here.
Giving it everything that he has. He's lost quite a bit of time now. About 2.4 seconds now separates him from Douglas Ritter, so he's going to have to give it.
Taylor, I need to break this off because it's looking like we might see a second place change. The SimHQ3 is being caught in these final moments by PG13. Connor Denny is bumper to bumper here with Cameron Bidwell. I thought it was going to stay close. Maybe third might change with fourth, but no. Second place might change here in the GTE class. PG13, after their tumultuous start to this race, that horrible crash, and no hood on that car for the first entire cycle, now is looking like it could potentially take second place here. This is insane.
It certainly is. 3 cars under our blanket for that second spot here, as we should be seeing the white flag for our race leaders in class, Paul Darling and Kurt Poulter here momentarily. 30 seconds left on the clock. Paul Darling is coming out of turn number 6, while Kurt Poulter, he's just now about to enter turn 6. So this lines up perfectly for both Kurt Poulter and Paul Darling. Once that timer expires, 1 lap to go for our race leaders.
Absolutely, I'm really nervous about this battle in GTE. This is so close. And if I was the PG13 guys, I'd be terrified because their car is in a blue sandwich. It is a Sim HQ sandwich here. And it is a very terrifying experience because they will team up against you. You know that.
They certainly will. But right now, the white flag is in the air for Paul Darling and the Revo Satellite Racing as they come out of NASCAR turn number 4. We're going to see if the checkered flag will come out, which it will, as Paul Darling and David Williams will win the LMP2 class in here at Daytona. And also here comes the Unified Performance Racing of Kurt Poulter, as well as he and well will take home the GTE class win, as we got to go over to the battle for second right now in the class. Rachel, what do you see?
I think it's going to finish the way it's been for the last lap or so. SimHQ3 is going to be coming towards the line here for second place. I don't think there's enough time for them to catch them, as it's going to be into the tri-oval here at Daytona. And across the line, under the stands, it'll be SimHQ3, followed by PG13 and SimHQ2. Well,
with that, while every rest of the field works their way around the field to complete this 150-minute endurance race, we are going to take a quick commercial break. But don't worry, we're going to come back. We're going to give you a full field rundown, as well as talk to our podium finishers in both LMP2 and GTE class. MS iRacing Team Endurance Series. Welcome back to coverage of the CMS iRacing Team Endurance Series live from the World Center of Racing of Daytona International Speedway. We have just come to conclusion and we're about to give you your full field rundown of both the P2 class as well as the GTE class. Winning today's race, Paul Darling and David Williams with the Revo Satellite Team will come home in first in class and overall in LMP2. Jordan Johnson and the CMS Pro Summit team will come home second, followed by Imperial Motorsports Shake with Christopher Pies and Leif Peterson wheeling that in car. Pneumatic Motorsports Purple, Jimmy Hume will come home in fourth, followed by Backroads Bandit Racing, Mike Burnett taking fifth position. Scott Hensley will come home in sixth with the TNT Racing Carbon. He had help from also McIntyre to help him get through the race today. Douglas Ritter in seventh place in the DDM Racing in seventh position, a strong run after starting in the seventh position. Pneumatic Motorsports Blue, Jason Lundy in eighth position, followed by the Penguin RC Complex SimWorks Racing. Brian Son, we talked about them. We hope they get a top 10. They ended up getting a top 10 finish. They're going to come home in ninth. 10th place goes to SimHQ Motorsports 1, Scott Gillespie taking it to the checkered flag. 11th position, you'll find Andrew Cheslock in the Rebellion Racing, followed by Poggers in a Blanket, Michael Quinn in 12th. The Craft Dinner Racing comes home 13th in class, Eric Mahoney wheeling the car to the checkered flag. 14th goes to Father and Son Motorsports Jeff Hooton, followed by Team Cosmos Drake Bergone, rounding out your top 15. 16th goes to George Dean in Inferno Racing, and 17th, Wayne Hutchinson in LMP2. Rachel?
LMP2, of course, Unified Performance Racing coming home first in class with SimHQ Motorsports 3, second place, and last up at the podium, PG13 Racing. After a very rocky start for them. Fourth place is SimHQ 2, with Renault Alpha Racing in fifth. Bosphorus Blue in sixth place, with Bosphorus Green in seventh. Behind them, eighth place, Longhorn Racing Lone Star, with ninth being Kamikaze, and Can-Am Express in 10th. Behind them is Auto X Sim Motorsports in 11th place, with Team Breakfade in 12th. 13th place is NGP Motorsports, with 14th Can-Am Racing, 15th All Balls Racing, 16th Triple R Racing, 17th MMTR, 18th Can-Am Canucks after a unfortunate race for them, and 19th Longhorn Racing.
And that is your full field rundown here for round number 1 of the CMS iRacing Team Endurance Series. And as we get ready to work them up into the booth, David Williams, Paul Darling, your LMP2 overall and class winners. Gentlemen, welcome up to the booth. Congratulations on taking home the checkered flag here at Daytona. How do you feel?
Thank you, Taylor. Feeling pretty good. I'm happy about it. I was the also ran. Paul did most of the work today.
At least he has an excuse. His VR failed. He's on a single screen for the first time in like 5 years or whatever. So it was a pretty, well, probably looked more straightforward than it was on the broadcast. But it was a good result for us in the end. We're happy with it.
Now, quick question right quick for David. You know, we saw that incident late in the going for you, David, in your stint where the two BMWs come across each other off of turn number 6. What was your reaction going through that section right there?
Oh, man, I was just thinking we're dead. I was like, he's definitely coming off that wall and hitting us. There's no doubt. But luckily it stopped, and I just hit the gas and hoped that I got out of there before they slid down on me, and it worked out. So a little bit of luck, a little bit of skill, and then we made it through, thank God.
And Paul, of course, you've had pretty much a quiet run for you. Anything interesting that you pointed out or saw when you were out there on the track? Of course, when we saw you, every time we turned around, it was pretty much just you just slicing it through lap traffic.
Yeah, from the outside perspective, we were actually a little more panicked on the inside, I think. We didn't have the best setup. We actually had a lot of damage from bottoming out in the bus stop. After that update, we didn't have time to properly reevaluate it. So we were sweating more than it probably looked like on the broadcast, but it's a good race.
Well, Paul, David, before you go and celebrate your victory, is there anything you would like to add or any thanks or shout out you would like to give before we let you go and celebrate this victory before we turn right back around in a month's time to head off to Sebring?
Yeah, I'd like to thank CMS league for having us, letting us join this. This is pretty cool. Really enjoy it. My first experience with it. I know Paul has experience. Thanks you guys for broadcasting, and thanks for Satellite Racing for having us as part of their team. It's a great way to step off our first race with the team.
Yeah, don't have anything other than that. Thanks.
All right. Well, that is David Williams and Paul Darling, your overall and class winners in the LMP2 for Revo's Satellite Racing. Next up is the CMS Pro Team. Chris Kymailer and Jordan Johnson coming up into the booth. Chris, Jordan, a very interesting start to the race. Chris, of course, you had that early incident going into turn one. What was your thoughts after that incident happened?
After incident, get into the pits, and get our flash repair, get back on track, and hopefully we were able to make up some time and ended up was able to do that.
Chris, we saw early on in the going when you were on the track, the difficulties of you having to negotiate through traffic. For an LMP2 driver, how difficult it is to try to find the right times to pass GTEs or slower LMP2s in order to keep pace with a tough competitor such as the Revo Satellite Racing team.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. Around Daytona is not as well some other tracks with a couple long straights, but definitely when you can catch them on the infield, they can get hairy. You just kind of have to play your cards right and wait for an opening to pass them.
Certainly is. And Jordan, any thoughts you would like to include on your time out on the track? You brought it home to the checkered flag, of course, and what were some of the things that you noticed while out on track?
First off, I just want to thank everyone in the field. It probably was the most respectful race I've ever had in recent memory. A lot of space given from fellow GTEs and LMP drivers. But at the same time, I also think everyone was very closely matched. We had to really, especially for the start of my stint, had to really push hard to try to battle and get some time back that we lost earlier in the race, taking another pit stop. And then come to the end, we were able to actually finally relax a little bit and kind of manage the gap, which was an absolute relief once we finally were in the clear and just could put our heads down and finish the race.
Well, before we let you go and celebrate this second place finish, any thoughts or shout outs or thanks you would like to give?
I like to thank the CMS guys for putting this together. Again, ditto what Jordan says, one of the most respectful endurance races I've been a part of. So thanks, guys.
Of course, one of the things we want to say congratulations to the CMS Pro Summit team is they are the fastest lap of the race winners from Grid Fighter. So, gentlemen, congratulations. You set the fastest time of a 1:33.615 in the LMP2 class. So, a little bit of an extra booster to give you a setup for Sebring as well.
All right. Awesome.
Love to hear it.
Good thing to hear, as that is, of course, the CMS Pro Summit team of Chris Kymailer and Jordan Johnson. And of course, the next team to finish out the podium, of course, close friends of ours here, of course, for me and Ryan, Christopher Pies, Leif Peterson. Of course, they are, of course, competing this season under the Imperial Motorsports Shake Team. Gentlemen, welcome up to the booth once again, and congratulations on your podium finish.
Hey, thank you, Taylor.
Good.
Now, Chris, quick question we got to ask. Was Mr. Chip up on your shoulder giving you help?
Oh, of course. He's always giving me hell. Any chance he can get, he's squawking at me and letting me know everything I did wrong. He was complaining that we let some guys back into the race, but it was hard fought, I think.
It certainly was. I mean, both of you were up inside the top 3, top 5 for the duration of the race. And Leif, what were some of the conditions you find to be interesting while competing?
Well, obviously multi-class, we both have an affinity for that. We did all the endurance series last season and we raced in Autobahn. I dragged Chris into Autobahn. I dragged Chris into this. So we're really, and we do a lot of endurance racing in real life, especially Chris does. So yeah, we wanted to participate in this. We also, noticed Paul Darling and Dave Williams were in here. We knew they were going to be the favorites, and so we just wanted to see how we could do in here. This is the first time in this league, and we know Doug from another league. So yeah, it had all the right ingredients. I'd been running with CMS and formerly TXL for years before this, so I'm really glad to see the growth of this league.
Now, Leif, one of the things I was kind of surprised, and Chris, if you want to chip in, what made you decide to run the P2 instead of a more famous GT manufacturer such as Porsche?
We run that a lot in other leagues, and we're trying to. I have a prototype in real life that I need to get more comfort with, as it's my first prototype that I'm prepping for WRL, and so I'm really focused on getting as much seat time in the P2 as possible because that's the closest thing to my car as iRacing has. And we really enjoy the car. It's a great car. We drove it for Petit Le Mans last year, had a ball. It's just fantastic to drive. So yeah, it's a win-win.
Certainly is. Well, before we let you go, Chris, Leaf, who would you like to say thank you to?
I want to say thank you to all the members of my crew, Billy Smith and Chris. What do you got?
Oh, just thanks to you guys, Taylor and Ryan, and big shout out to Doug Atkinson as well, because I mean, these guys have done a great job, and so has Doug, making these events possible, and the professionalism you guys show when you do your broadcasts and when you run these leagues is second to none. So thank you so much.
And of course, we cannot forget, of course, our wonderful Rachel Whiteford as well, who is also in the booth with us, Chris. So you got to make sure you thank her.
Oh, thanks, Rachel. I appreciate it.
Of course. Well,
thank you, Rachel.
Congratulations to you, gentlemen, for finishing third. As we actually turn to Miss Rachel Whiteford as we talk to our GTE class winner.
We certainly do. Of course, we have Kurt and Justin here from Unified Performance Racing. Guys, a fantastic run today. A textbook endurance performance, I'd say, for you guys in your car.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Quickly turn to Justin. You put, I think, a large portion of the time behind the wheel for this machine. But how was the race for you, especially the start there? It looked like you had to really assert that position very early on to second place.
Yeah, it was really good. We got lucky on the start, and just from there, continued. And around, lap 12? Unfortunately, Alex got hit, but other than that, it was a good, close race.
And a question for Kurt. Little Birdie told us you're a bit of a BMW specialist. What got you into a prancing horse?
Yeah, Taylor may have mentioned that, I would say. He does our BMW league. Yeah, Justin is a friend of mine from CMS. We run in competing classes in the regular race, and we're friends outside of this, so we decided, hey, let's team up for the endurance races and see what we can do. And he's kind of a specialist in the Ferrari, knows how to set them up, so I decided to join him and see how we can do, and I'm happy with our result, obviously.
Certainly a fantastic result nonetheless. Anybody you guys would like to give a shout out to? Any sponsors you'd like to thank?
Definitely CMS for putting the league on for us, and Penguin RC for helping out with everything, Complex and Werps, and personally for me, Evolve Range Solutions and Vandalia Range and Armory. Those guys are awesome supporters of ours.
And for me, just thank CMS and Penguin for putting us on. It's a good time.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Of course, the two boys from Unified Performance Racing, Justin Hess and Kurt. Up next, we have the guys who finished second place here. That is SimHQ Motorsports 3. And we have Connor Denny. And I love how he hasn't got his name in Discord set to the same as his actual driver name. So I'm going to have to go and look up the car here to remind myself who the second driver was in that machine. That would be Paul Hale, I think it is. Is that you,
That'd
Paul?
be correct, yes.
Excellent.
Sorry about that.
We have Paul. His Discord name for the viewers here is, oh, hey, look at this guy, which is super helpful to the broadcasters. Anyway, second place today, a fantastic run from you. Your sister car was with you a lot of the race, of course, and first off, fantastic run. But second question there is, were you guys working together, or was it a compete if you can deal?
I think... Oh, you want to take that one?
No, you can do it.
We kind of talked a little bit about strategy, people were taking tires or not, but I think we were running different setups, and it was basically just we were kind of at the same place at the same time.
So I would like to know if any team communication happened though when PG-13 got between you guys towards the end of the race. Was there any, hey, could you back them up to us sort of discussions?
No sort of team orders between the two cars there. We were definitely hoping that Brian would catch up, but at the same time, and the car behind would catch up, but there was nothing official there. We weren't under strict orders.
Competition between team cars. Love to hear that. So for the pair of you, how was the race? How was the car running in terms of its tires over the race duration?
Pretty good, I think. We were thinking about changing tires, but the car that we were fighting for P2 early in the race looked like they switched theirs out and they just fell straight down the order. So we really felt that we couldn't take the time in order to get new ones, and it wasn't going to really save us as much time as it would take to get some new rubber on there anyway. So we just had to deal with a little bit of looseness towards the end. I mean, Connor did a good job keeping it on the track, and that's all we had to do.
Do you think that's a strategy, though, that will hold mileage when you go to somewhere much rougher like Sebring?
Possibly not. It's going to be on a case-by-case basis. Daytona's really light on the tires, and not a whole lot of high-speed corners. And Road Atlanta could be different, and Sebring could definitely be different.
Oh, most certainly. Well, thank you very much to both of you for coming here. Any sponsors? Anybody you'd like to give a shout out to?
I'd definitely love to give a shout out to CMS for hosting the series, and also to the rest of the SimHQ team. Just because we're 3 different cars doesn't mean it's not a team effort, and so definitely want to thank them for all the interconnected support we've gotten leading up to this.
Fantastic as always, and not sure if you guys know about the bet that's riding on your backs, of course, between the CMS and SimHQ bosses, as it were. You heard about this one?
No, we haven't. No. I haven't.
Your bosses have a little informal bet going, depending on who wins out the season between the 2 teams. And I think we the broadcast team are trying to push the end result to be a recorded ride on a mechanical bull for the loser. So we'll have to find out, of course. Both of them being Texans, it seems fitting.
That seems reasonable, yeah.
It does, yeah. So could you guys either win or throw it either way, whichever you want to see happen as a result? We'd love that.
Sure.
Don't throw it. Just win for your guy, okay? Win for your guy. But anyway, thank you for joining us, guys. Fantastic result from both of you. Paul Hale, now he fixed his name, and Connor Denny from the SimHQ Motorsports 3 car.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Up next, of course, we have the team from PG-13 Racing, whose race did not start out very PG-13, actually, with a massive donk for Alex LaRose. You guys have been fan favorites today from what we've seen. We've got Alex and Cameron here from the team. Alex, tell us about the crash early on.
Yeah, so early on, I was pretty happy with our pace, and we were keeping the gap to Justin and the United Performance team. I think we were happy with the position, and I think we had some P2s come through. I think it was the leaders into turn 1, and one of them went a little bit wide. I thought they were going to kind of sail off the track, and unfortunately I was wrong. So it was a big crash right at the start there, and actually I'm not sure if it came across on the broadcast, but right in the first horseshoe, right after that, there was another car that spun right in front of me, and to add insult to injury, another big crash right there. So we ended up running the majority of that first stint with no hood on the car, which definitely cost us some time.
Yeah, it certainly did, of course. Not really aiding the air cooling there, of course. But either way, you guys really soldiered back and you gained positions. You fought back between you and Cameron, putting some phenomenal laps in that car. It was a tough race, but how is Daytona for you guys compared to the other tracks we're looking at this season?
Yeah, I think Daytona is a pretty fun track, and I think it has the benefit of, I know a lot of us are also practicing for the Daytona 24. There's a lot of Daytona races going on this week, so I think it's definitely a good track in terms of being well practiced, and it's definitely a good one for the series to start on. And yeah, I'm just super happy with the finish today. I know Cameron had such a good third stint and clawed his way back up to third. And yeah, super happy with the result today.
I think we're having some issues with Cameron. We can't seem to hear him unless he's talking in a very, very quiet voice.
Nope.
No, I heard him.
I'm here.
He's here now. He wasn't here.
Yeah, I didn't hear you. Sorry about that.
Oh, that was weird then. Okay, some Discord shenaniganry happening. Do go ahead, Cameron.
Can you ask the question again? I apologize.
Any team, any persons you'd like to give a shout out to, or any sponsors you'd like to thank?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, the PG-13 guys. I mean, there's about 10 of us in the background that didn't participate in this race today, and we've been practicing all week for the 24 for this race, just doing strategy and testing different setups. So I'll give a big shout out to all of them. Alex dared me to give a shout out to my cat because he didn't step on the power button during the race, so that's always a good thing too. So yeah, all in all, this is a team effort, and it definitely showed today.
I think you mentioned the cat to the power button last week at the practice race.
Yeah, it's a trend, so we're probably going to hear it again in the future if we get interviewed again.
That's our assholes. I would expect that. Well, thank you, folks. You guys have both been fantastic, and congratulations on the result today. We hope to see similar from next week.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Well, back to you, Taylor.
Well, of course, we got a couple of awards to give out to right now. Of course, one of them is going to, we just talked about them, we talked about the CMS Pro Summit team with the fastest lap, a contingency award from Grid Finder. This one for GTE goes to, of course, United Performance Racing with a 140.137. There's also ones for at least amount of incident reports for each class. Of course, Can-Am Express, we talked about them earlier on in the going. They had 0 incidents during their race, so a great effort for them. Very clean race for them. While the Pneumatic Motorsports Purple team had only 5 incidents, so they had the least amount in LMP2. Of course, a couple of more awards to go out to for, of course, the most positions gained in LMP2. The Back Road Bandit team was able to do that. And then, of course, sweeping another award goes to the Can-Am Express team with 0 incidents. Of course, they had earlier. They also had the most positions gained in their race today here at Daytona. Well, Rachel, we closed the chapter on 1 round and we have 4 to go. Next up, we continue the Florida run here at Sebring in a month's time, February 21st. What was your take on today's race, and what can we expect in the future?
Daytona was a fantastic example of racing here at a big, open, purpose-built racetrack, and it's going to be a whole different story when we get to the bumpy, broken concrete, the high curbs of Sebring. The corner jumping is going to be a really tight, narrow, twisty street track kind of feel to that race. Well, if Florida Man is famous for his silly, crazy things he gets up to, Florida racing is very little difference. We're going to have a great one there as we move to a different part of Florida. This one, a little bit more rough and ready. And the racing should be too.
From the east coast to the west coast of Florida, so from the Atlantic Ocean to the Gulf. So we're going to have quite a bit of fun. Of course, you can catch all the action for round number 2 of the CMS iRacing Team Endurance Series live on Sunday, February 21st at the virtual Sebring International Raceway. Well, with that, it is time that we bring this race to a close. For, of course, have to say thank you to all of you who are watching us here today. And, of course, for myself, Taylor Burris, my wonderful co-host, Rachel Whiteford, and our fabulous producer, Mr. Ryan Bauer, we want to, of course, have to give a big shout-out to our sponsors.
Also, guys from Penguin RC, Complex SimWorks, Grid Finder, and Visual Images, all of whom make this series possible. You guys are amazing. And please, viewers, go check them out. They have fantastic products to make your sim racing amazing. So from us here, thank you. And Taylor, take it away.
And of course, thank you once again for tuning in today's broadcast, and have a great evening.